This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another afternoon here in Djuma in the Sabi Sands. My name is Steve Falconbridge and I'm joined on camera by Fergus himself. There we go, saluted. And it is a very nice 24 degrees Celsius, 76 degrees Fahrenheit in the southern Kruger, where are we? Great, Kruger National Park, Sabi Sands. Remember, this is interactive. Send through your questions and comments, hashtag SafariLive, or follow us on the YouTube stream. Let us know what you'd like to see. I am not the only one out this afternoon. Mr. James Hendry is out, and Taylor McCurdy is out on foot. So we're going to be bringing you some wonderful things. I'm seeing if I can pick up on any tracks of those cheetah from this morning. They do move during the day, so there's a very good chance we might find some tracks of them moving. And that will be me for the next little while. But please send through your questions and comments. Let us know how you are doing. Okay, so the tracks of those Avoca males came through this way to the north yesterday. Okay, so the cheetah have been seen in the south. So me trying to pick up on their tracks might be a little harder than I thought. But who knows? You never know. These animals do move, and we might be out before the other game viewers. Which, yeah. Okay, so we're just going to scratch around on some game paths, have a look, see any other tracks we might find. But in the meantime, let's go say good afternoon to James Hendry.
Good afternoon. It's marvellous to be with you here in the afternoon on the Sunset Safari. It is a gorgeous afternoon, roughly 24 degrees Celsius, 75 Fahrenheit. Amazing how I can do that to such a degree of accuracy. It's really quite impressive. My name is James Hendry. There we go. And on camera, oh sorry, yes, I've just been told by Kirsten, who's back in the final control, delivering discipline, that is an old thing. I mustn't do that again. I do apologise, I won't. I just thought I'd do it for old time's sake. Won't happen again. Sebastian Rombi is on camera. There's his thumb. And we are going to look for Tundi and Tlalamba around where we saw Tundi this morning and had tracks of Tundi and Tlalamba this morning. So that's our plan. Please talk to us, of course, using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Otherwise, you can chat to us using the YouTube stream chat thing next to the picture where people talk. Good. That is all the housekeeping taken care of. Hello, Monica. You say you're happy that I'm back. Thank you, Monica. I am very happy to be back as well. It is very pleasant to be in the winter Lowveld. It's the best time of the year to be here from a weather point of view. Not necessarily from a game point of view, but I think from a weather point of view it's really good. JC, yes, it is still winter here. It will be winter until roughly the 8th of August, whereupon it will suddenly turn hot, and it is really astounding how quickly that will happen. We'll have one or two cold snaps. September will be hot, October will be utterly beastly, but for the odd cold front that will come through, and hopefully by November, the end thereof, we'll have a bit of proper rain. Now this is where we saw the cat this morning. I'm going to fossick around here a bit for some tracks.
Now, something that Tundi and Tlalamba would like to eat are these impala that we are looking at, and of course they're in their usual spot here around Yevuyatela Dam. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Thenzo. And then, of course, we've got the mighty Rexon accompanying us on this walk. And Rexon has also thrown in the words Tundi and Tlalamba, so perhaps we'll help James in his search this afternoon. And then what we're really after is going to be some elephants. That's the real goal this afternoon, is to sit with a big herd of elephants and then hopefully follow them for the entire afternoon. I think I just repeated myself. But that's what we'll be doing, just in case you missed it. And it's such a nice day today. It's not as hot as what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was actually going to be a lot more warmer. But that's okay. It's a nice, fair temperature. So that's nice. Where are these impala going? I don't know if it's because of us that they're moving away or if they were headed in that direction anyways. But they're all making their way down across what once used to be Vuyatela Dam, but it's now nothing but some dried up mud. I'm sure there's some nice, maybe a couple of nice grasses coming through there. Julie, I'm so sorry that you have to painfully sit through listening to my voice not once but twice on the damn cam. I suppose, yes, it is a bit like an echo. Yeah, we took a shortcut, just like those Impala. Oh, yeah, they all come racing down. This is actually what I was hoping they would do, was start leaping and bounding to catch up. No, now there's a break. It's like they see their shadows and they get a bit of a fright. Come on, someone show us really how well an Impala can jump, seen as though you're the long-distance jumping champions. You're not doing it very well today. Maybe a couple more. We'll pick up a bit of pace and do a couple of leaps and bounds. I'm looking forward to lambing season with the Impala towards the end of the year, early next year. Because once those little ones are born and feel fairly comfortable on their legs, that's normal. Is lots of leaping and bounding, and those youngsters hadn't quite worked out how to use their legs too well, so they do exceptional leaps. Let's see, there's still more coming. There's quite a big group of Impala. I also can't believe how quiet it is at the moment. It's strange not hearing all the birds chirping. No, there's not much chirping at all. I was just having a little listen. I think I can hear some sparrows or something. Some oxpeckers every now and then. But other than that seems to be all. But I think we get a move on. Shall we get a move on? Yeah, let's carry on. We'll carry on marching. And we're basically going to head in that direction. I think if we're going to have any chance of finding elephants, we need to think of water. And we need to think of good areas where they would, I suppose, find nice food, and that's of course the drainage line. So that's going to be a really, really good spot to go and check. So that's what we'll aim for. Maybe keep an eye out on the dam cam, because I expect that these Impala are going to be spectacular as soon as we come around the corner. Anyways, let's go back across to James and see if he's anywhere near where he saw those cats this morning.
I am in the same place where I saw the cat this morning. No tracks though. That's not to say there aren't any. She may well have wandered through here. There are lots of tracks of giraffes, however. And also, up ahead, a gorgeous sighting of some of the most common antelope in all of southern Africa, the impala, Epsirus melampus. There we have them. Well done, Sebastian, for spotting them. Now, this is a nursery herd, of course. Young males, one big male, a number of females, and of course all of those ladies, most of them anyway, now pregnant. Not heavily so. They would have been pregnant around about a month now. So they won't even know about it. And apparently Taylor was just talking about the lambing season, which links very neatly into my speaking of the November rains. Not the Guns N' Roses version thereof, but the actual end of November rains that we have here, which tends to coincide with the birthing of the impalas. Very peaceful. Let's just have a listen for 20 seconds. I'd just be able to hear the movement of the wind through the twigs that are sort of hanging on the ends of the knobthorn trees. A lot of them also have pods on them, and I think that's what the wind is rustling through. There are a couple of quite picturesque clouds in the sky as well, and very little in the way of birdsong. There's something calling there that I can't identify. Tip, 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 tip. Kirsten has been very helpful there. She says that it is a bird. You know, it's a wonder she doesn't do the presenting herself. Right, from southern Africa's most common antelope to East Africa's most common antelope.
Indeed, we have got some brindled gnu right here. Having a little bit of a munch. We are up in the northwestern parts of Djuma. Sydney's dam is in the background, and no doubt these wildebeest have had a bit of a drink and are slowly feeding on their way away from the dam itself. And it's just interesting how we can tie it into my discussion this morning about overutilized areas. And generally, the closer you are to a watering hole, the more utilized it gets, purely because of the frequency of animals going in to visit. So there is an enormous amount of magic worry plants in and around this area. But then also, because the magic worry is known to increase in overutilized areas, and ecologically that's quite important, because first of all, these wildebeest are ruminants. They require shade to ruminate, especially in the summer months. So these quarries will obviously provide a lot of shade, also stabilizing the soil. And animals out in the savannah require shade for surviving in the heat of the day. These wildebeest aren't really needing it right now. It's a nice cool day. But in the summer months, those of you who've ever been out here, it is a very different story. So nature is very ecologically clever. And wildebeest hanging out in their little herd. No doubt they will be moving further and further away from the watering hole, looking for tastier and better food, because not only are the trees indicators of overutilization, the majority of the grass species located here close to the watering hole will be very low in grazing value. There won't be a huge amount of nourishment in them. A little bit of argy-bargy. Okay, well, before these, well, there we go. They're going into the shade. Let's go to Taylor, who seems like she's got a bird with a limp.
We did. Let's try and find it again. Now, the bird that we've got is a Natal spurfowl. Remember this morning on the Sunrise Safari we were learning about the differences between the Natal spurfowl and the Swainson spurfowl. This one has got an injury. It's very sad, actually. Its left foot is chopped off. Hasn't got any toes, so it's only got one working foot on the right, and it's sort of hobbling along. Because at first I thought, oh, it's got a bit of a limp. It's just gone down in here. We'll see if we can see it again. But it didn't look like a fresh injury. It didn't look like anything new. Let's see. We've just got to look carefully. I think it's trying to hide from us now. Can you see it? Oh, yeah. There it is. Just down over there. No, it's flying away from us. You won't be able to see from here. It's a bit far, I think. Now, I don't know what could have caused that injury. Maybe a snare or something like that. I know in lots and lots of people will actually catch ground-dwelling birds. As you can imagine, they're a great source of food. Now, we've seen elephants with missing trunks, big bits of their trunks missing. It could be something like that. They've got its foot caught in a snare and it just sort of cut off and it's carried on, because it doesn't look like a new injury. Couldn't see any blood, couldn't see anything. It looked like it had been, living like that for quite some time. So even a huge, disability like that, like missing a foot, I don't know how well it would perch. Although sometimes we see birds resting one foot. It is very sad, but I'm pretty sure it's able to carry on living. I think it's proving it. But that is crazy. That's amazing that this thing can still survive with just one foot. So I know it's very sad and it's not particularly nice, but these animals are strong and they are resistant and they are able to, of course, adapt to their surroundings. Anyways, we're going to keep carrying on towards the east. Off you go, back to James.
Well, we're just losing our kudu that's going behind a bushel, but he's a magnificent character. In fact, he's coming out. Here he is. Hello. Of course, everyone's going, oh, it's Zeus, it's Zeus. Of course, Zeus was a kudu. Well, I suspect Zeus is many kudu. That was named for the size of his horns, but his and every other kudu with those size horns has been called Zeus. Let's go and get another look at this Zeus, especially as he's going down towards where I rather hope Tandi and Kalamba will be lying in the shade. It would be nice if they'd just pitch up, as I said to Seb. David Gitu had a knack of materializing them like that. Can you see Zeus anywhere? Where he is? Ah, another one. Another one right here. Yes, Joy, there are absolutely spectacular corkscrew horns. Shall I just keep going, Seb? I think we'll get him here. Yeah. Come on, come out. Show yourself. There's another one way behind. See them there? There we are. He's not a Zeus, is he? They are, Trish. They are absolutely heavy. You say they look like they'd be heavy. That's because they are. And I read once, and I'm not entirely convinced that it's true, that kudu males live half the time that females live. And then one of the reasons for that is that the males only lived around 7 years because they really struggle with their horns. They get very big and heavy, and they get caught on trees when they try and run away from potential predators. And so they tend to live much less long than females do. I'm not sure I believe that, but I do think that those horns are a little bit like a peacock's tail. They serve no defensive function. They're purely for fighting each other and for attracting ladies. And so I think you'll find that the bigger the horns are, the greater the peril to the kudu, and of course if his ability, or if he's able to survive, well, such ability will indicate very strong genes to potential mates. You think you'll get him? Okay, and we go back a little bit. Hello, Magic Dragon Wizard. The answer to that is no, not legally anyway. This is a game reserve, so there's no hunting on this particular game reserve. Local people do from time to time hunt outside of the game reserve, and some of the hungrier ones do hunt inside the game reserve from time to time. They are, of course, poaching. But it's not a huge problem in this area, no. Certainly, you know, people do hunt for wild animals outside of the reserve. That does happen. And no real reason it shouldn't, of course, except for the fact that there are no more wild animals outside of the reserve. But the complexities of that discussion, well, they're not really for this forum. Okay, Stivovo, I believe, is doing what's known as milking a sighting for all it's worth.
Well, James, this morning I did not see a single animal on my walk, so I'm going to enjoy my time with these wildebeest that is scratching its head there with its hoof. And they are moving away. We're on the opposite side of them now. They're slowly moving away from the watering hole, and they are feeding very low to the ground. Wildebeest feed on very low shoots that are coming through. I ate a few the other day on my bushwalk. Very tasty. Not really. But so they are very low to the ground, and they do have the potential, when they are in very large numbers, wildebeest, to be quite destructive to the environment. As James mentioned, they are hugely accumulating and migrating in the Mara and Serengeti. There, their disturbance is very, very obvious, but they move. Down here in southern Africa, we have put up fences, and the wildebeest do not go anywhere. They stay. We've seen a similar sort of thing in Namibia, where they've opened up the fences now. Now the wildebeest are allowed to move again, and it is changing the landscape. Look at how they're running. The wind has picked up, and something has gotten under their noses. The way they're running is why they are called wildebeest. Wildebeest is the Afrikaans, or Dutch, should I say, for wild cow. They kind of look like a cow, and when they run, they look like a wild cow. That's a beautiful shot, Ferg. So yes, they accumulate in large numbers, but normally they should move in search of the rains. They will follow the rains, but here in the Kruger National Park and areas around, they cannot move in great distances because there is an enormous fence around the entire enormity of the park, even though it is an enormous area. So wildebeest are regarded as what we call category 3 feeders, on the same level as warthog, which means in high numbers they can be very destructive to the landscape and to the ground. Zach, do any antelope give birth to more than one antelope? Yes, every now and again. Waterbuck have been known to. I suppose a lot of them have from time to time, but it's not that easy to do. Twins is a really, really big ask for an animal, but I've never really seen it. I've only ever seen waterbuck with twins, but I think there is an occurrence in a number of animals, but I'm not 100% sure on which species have produced twins in the past, but very difficult and hard for the female to produce. But I don't think it's impossible for many species. I just think it's not the norm. And then they go back to their feeding. See how low they are feeding to the ground. So the grass, if you've got grass at home, you'll know that if you mow it, it comes back green, and you mow it, it comes back green. And that's exactly what the wildebeest do. There's a lot of pressure on these watering holes, on the grass and stuff around the watering hole. So there's constant pressure, constant grazing happening. So by mowing it short, there's constantly green stuff coming forward. But what that does is it actually lowers the vigor of the grass, the vigor meaning the strength and its ability to bounce back, because there's no rest at all on the grasses within like a 5-kilometer radius of water in the dry season. And that grass gets, would you say, I'd say hammered. So after a period of time, it does lose condition, and its ability to bounce back to where it was before is hampered because of the pressure produced by grazing animals. But then again, these grasses are all adapted to being grazed, but at the intensity which some of them do is quite different. Sometimes, obviously, these animals will always select the tastiest and sweetest grasses around. Hello, Joy. You want to know about categories of feeders? I said category 3. Well, all of your category 1 would be animals that have no impact really on the environment. So a lot of the browsing animals, be it kudu, giraffe, and then the small animals that are sort of mixed feeders like duiker, steenbok, klipspringer, they don't seem to impact the environment at all. And they just kind of go with the flow. They might shape a tree or two, but that's it. They don't change the landscape. And then category 2 is sort of all those selective and bulk grazers that fit in the middle, that, you know, like they mow the lawn, but they don't degrade it in any way. For example, a rhino will mow the lawn, but cropping it quite low, like hippo, and actually produces very nice lawns. So there's not too much destruction. Waterbuck as well, they don't degrade the environment. But animals such as elephant, wildebeest, and warthog are regarded as category 3 because they have the ability to change the landscape. Warthogs, for example, they will stick their noses in the ground and uproot the roots. And yes, it's a very natural thing. The environment has evolved with them. Same as the wildebeest, they do a lot of rolling around and they graze quite low to the ground. So they have the ability to cause patches and disturbance on the ground. And elephant as well. They break trees over, they destroy all sorts of things. But in controlled numbers, they are perfectly normal and perfectly natural to the environment. But if their numbers are uncontrolled and unchecked, they can lead to degradation, erosion, migration and habitat change and loss. So that is what puts those three, and impala, I believe, as well, can be put underneath category 3, because they're a mixed feeder. They breed hugely, and they reduce the amount of recruitment of small saplings coming through. So they're also under 3. So it's a reason why those 3 species for a long time were managed and controlled, their populations in the Kruger National Park. But at the moment, I don't believe much is happening in the regard of number control. I hope that that sums it up for you. Please feel free to ask more questions if you're not sure. Yeah, exactly, Phyllis. That's exactly it. It sounds like a hurricane. Down in the Eastern Cape, warthog numbers are unbelievably high because there's a lot of agriculture and a lot of farming, and the predators are gone. So the warthogs, they're destroying everything. So down there, it's almost a free-for-all. If you want to remove pigs, you can. Warthogs, you can, because they're degrading the environment to such an extent. But up here, they're not too bad because we've got lots of leopards and hukumuri, the kind of warthog specialist. So when predators are in check or at the right level, they tend to control these animals to a nice sort of degree. But wildebeest naturally would have moved in and out of these areas, and they don't now. So certain measures need to take place, I suppose. And elephants also used to move vast distances, giving lots of these areas rest. Sometimes they would take 5 years to come back to an area like this, but because even though the Kruger Park is an enormous area, there is still a lot of pressure on these environments because of the animal numbers. But that is an enormously long conversation that we can go on for at length. If you like, please let me know, and we shall. Eagle sprout, what an interesting name. You want to know what nutrition animals can get from dead grass? Well, you know, the protein value in the grass really does drop as it gets drier and drier. But if you've ever made lucerne or hay, for example, that type of grass tends to hold its nutrients. But a lot of the grasses you find close to watering holes have quite a low nutrient quality and also quite a low leaf yield. It's just the way that it is. It's the way that nature has designed it so that the root will stay and the plant doesn't get overly utilized. But the very sweet, tasty grasses we might find in the drainage lines, the depressions, under trees that have fallen over, I'll look for some. They can hold a huge amount of their value. I can't tell you exactly the amount, but they definitely do lose a lot of nutrients when they're dry. But certain species do still hold quite a high amount in the same way lucerne and hay does. But you know, nature has its way of providing the food, and the animals will choose what they want. And maybe we'll spend a bit of time focusing on some grasses this afternoon, if you like, and we can go into more detail about all of that. But for now, we're going to move on and stop milking this sighting while Taylor herself is walking through the long grass.
I wonder where those wildebeest are. I'm pretty sure they're the same ones that we had this morning. Very interesting to hear where they are. If they're still on Ingwe Alley, or Jigga Jigga Road as it's also known as, or if they're Sandy Patch. Perhaps it's another group of wildebeest. 2 groups of wildebeest. Wow. Hey, that's exciting. Anyways, we'll carry on. So we're just walking through this area at the moment. It's one of my favorite spots to walk, and we're actually going to get to a pathway that I've walked many times before. Remember that one time when I did a hop, skip and a jump and then I slid down the side of the bank on an animal pathway? Yeah, we're going back there again. So it could be an entertaining route, just saying. And I know along the way here we might see some orb spiders. We haven't seen any of those things just yet. We're kind of just having a little look in the meantime to see what's around here. I'm just stopping to have a quick look. Josh, most common animal that I think we see around here is the ones that I showed you right at the beginning, the impala. You get them all over Africa. And just going back to what Steve was sort of talking about, is that impala are exceptionally important to, well, the ecosystem. And the reason why they are so successful is because they're able to alternate. They don't, in terms of their food, they don't just have to eat grass. They don't just have to eat leaves. They can eat all the things that are vegetarian, of course. You're not going to see an impala, you know, taking down another impala and then eating it. That doesn't happen. But I'm trying to work out where Senzo, where do you want to go? This side. Okay, Senzo would like to walk there. No, that's fine. So they're pretty much the most successful, one of the most successful animals out here in Africa, and there are lots and lots and lots of them in the Greater Kruger area, so the area that we are in at the moment. And it's important for all the leopards that we have around, because impala are a huge part of not just the leopard's diet, but also hyena and as well as cheetah. And what is the other animal I was going to tell you? Did I say lion? I think I was going to say lion too. So there's lots and lots and lots of animals that rely on them. Goodness, it is miserable out on these walks. There's not even an insect anymore. Normally you just had to look down, you'd see a grasshopper or a spider. Normally if I would walk through an area like this, everything would just fly up. Not anymore. Not anymore. But a lot of those insects' lifespans sort of would have come to an end. They'd normally plan it that way. And some of them might be pupating, only going to come out when the first rains. Colleen, you can find a scorpion at any time. You just got to, of course, you've got to look for them. So if you're not looking in the right places, then your best chance would be to find them at night. But if you just turn over a log, or you pull back a piece of bark, or something along those lines, it's pretty easy to find them. Around in camp, there are actually a lot on the knobthorn trees, so they can, of course, be seen. They're masters of camouflage, though. In the Eastern Cape, we used to just pick up big rocks, and then there was a type of rock scorpion you find almost all the time. They were quite cool, really tiny though, also fairly venomous. They weren't big at all, not like the big burrowing scorpions that we normally see around here, almost the size of the olivaceous, the olive bark scorpion that we see. Kind of that size, but more yellow in colour, almost like the Europlectes sort of colour of scorpions. We're going to keep on bumbling around here, I suppose, too, and hopefully find some animals for you all to have a look at. James is on an afternoon bumble.
We had some tracks of Tandy around about where I last saw you. They came up in this direction. Not sure how fresh they are, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time looking for them. I find the less I look for leopards, the more I find them. So we'll just have a quick little squiz up this road here, which is called Hyena Road. It's sort of mid-northeast, Juma. And if we don't find a leopard in the next 25 meters, we're going to turn around. Kukik, the nearest city to Juma, I mean, the traditional definition of a city of being a town with a cathedral, I suppose must be... I wonder if Polokwane has a cathedral. I guess it would probably be Polokwane. Otherwise, the next one would be Witbank or Middelburg. Those are the kind of biggest settlements close by. In a westerly direction. But in terms of big towns, the nearest big town is Nelspruit. That's where you'll find a decent hospital. That's about 350 kilometers away from us, I think, roughly, as the crow flies. No, not as the crow flies. The crow flies much closer. It's about probably 150 as the crow flies. And then the nearest town where doctors and supplies are would be Acorn Hook, which is about, well, it's 90 minutes away. It's about 50 kilometers away, I suppose, on some pretty bad roads. And then Hoedspruit is the next size up from that, also pretty small, but some decent shops and one or two doctors and that sort of thing. But the closest human settlement is Dixie Village, which is just outside the gate by 4.5 kilometers. So, you know, in Dixie you'll find people obviously living. There'll be a small kind of what we call a spaza shop, which is like a minuscule general dealer. There'll be some form of political organization in terms of there will be a village headman that looks after major issues in the area. I'm not sure if the Amnisi Tribal Authority chief lives there. I don't think he does. I think he lives just down the road in Utah. There will definitely be somewhere where you can buy beer, and that's all there will be there. It's a very small town, or little village, if you like. And then Utah down the road, slightly bigger than that, and then all the way until you hit Hoedspruit, there are these small villages, and they tend to get a little bigger and bigger actually the closer you get to a place like Hoedspruit. And the nearest place we can get fuel, for example, is Hlubukani, and Hlubukani is about, well, it's about 40 minutes drive from us. Over here you can get fuel there. If you're desperate, you can buy some form of food, I suppose. There's a traffic department there that you can go to if you want to pay your traffic fines, which nobody ever does, so I'm not sure what they do there. And then there's Acornhoek, which is a bit bigger, and then there's Hoedspruit. In fact, Acornhoek is probably bigger than Hoedspruit. It has a much larger general services, a much larger population than Hoedspruit. But Hoedspruit is a, I don't know, I guess it's a much more moneyed centre, if you like. So if you want to go and see a doctor, or if you want to kit out a lodge, basically, it's basically services the tourism sector of this area. And then Nelspruit, if you need to go to a hospital for a major issue, is about 350 k's away. It can't be that far. It's probably only about 200. It just takes about 3 hours to get there. JK, I used to know this, but I'm not actually entirely convinced I do anymore. The highest elevation of ground here, I think, is... I think it's 420 meters above sea level, which is about, well, what's that, times 3.25, it's about 1,300 feet above sea level. So we're quite low down here. That's why it's called the Lowveld. And the lowest point on the reserve is around Twin Dams, and that's probably about 40 meters lower than that. Probably not even, maybe about that, yeah. So 380 meters or so. I think that's correct. The highest point in the Kruger, I think, is only 580 meters, which is pretty low down. That is in feet times 3.25. Let's just roughly multiply 6 by 3, and we'll get to 1,800 feet. Right, no leopard around here. We're going to give up on this particular area and head down to Chitwa. See what we can find there. Alas and alack. Now, unfortunately, Steve has had to head back to camp. He's got an issue with the tripod on the car, so it's just Taylor and I for the next little while. Poor old T-Bomb. She's been here a while now. She and Steve are due some leave. They'll be going on holiday fairly soon. Colleen, you want to know what the best animal I've seen on drive is? Well, best is a very subjective thing, isn't it? I think probably wild dogs are my best things to see on drive. Just trying to think if there's anything more unusual. I suppose one of the very best animals I've seen on drive here was a serval. Now, David Eastor and I had a long session with a serval, about 20 minutes to half an hour, which of course in the Mara is not unusual, but up here it is quite unusual. And not too far from here we spent one evening, I think about 20 minutes with a serval, which was fantastic. I've always liked them. But other than that, there's not a great deal going on around where we're driving, so maybe we'll bump into that serval. Who knows? Started off so promisingly with those impalas. Anyway, so it goes. I'm just getting back into and used to the winter colours and starting to appreciate and enjoy them, especially as the sun starts to set. It's when they turn those lovely coppers and golds and reds. In the middle of the day it can look really quite harsh. Ah, Kudu. Lady Kudu. Looking alarmed. Not behaving in an alarmed fashion, just looking slightly in one direction. There we go. Please don't hide, Kudu. Yes, wonderful. Perfectly hidden. Gorgeous. That, of course, is what Kudu do. She might walk out into the open. I don't want to move and give her a fright. Let's see if she walks out into the open. There we are. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. I can also hear a woodpecker. If you listen very carefully, you might be able to hear it going. You can't hear it. I'm sorry about that, everyone. That's probably Kirsten's fault in the final control. It's made a mess with the levels or something. All right, on we go. Come on, Wendy. She just tried to stop there. She tried to cease moving. Helen girl, you want to know about my recent adventures? Well, I mean, adventure is quite a strong term. I didn't exactly go to a place where I had to starve and run enormous distances and hunt my own food and freeze to death. I went from the Caymans, where I learned to dive. That was very special indeed, discovering a new wilderness. And then I went to New Orleans, which was very interesting indeed. I listened to some live music. That's basically why I went there, so that I could sit at a bar and listen to live music. That was great. I walked around the French Quarter. I ate oysters at the Blind Pelican in the Garden District. I looked for Sandra Bullock. Apparently she lives there. I didn't find her, which is probably a good thing. And I caught a tram. You can still catch a tram there. It's called a streetcar in America. It was very nice indeed. I listened to some gorgeous Louisiana accents. Had a guide called Justin who took us around New Orleans on my first day there. That was fantastic. He had the best accent in the world. All I'm going to do is tell you how he introduced New Orleans to us. We started at the statue and he said, I'm going to attempt his accent, but it won't be nearly as glorious as his. But he said, over there is a statue of John Baptiste Lamar Bienville, our founder. That's John Baptiste Lamar Bienville. And I was immediately captivated by Justin, our guide. Over there is Café du Monde. Café du Monde sells beautiful beignets, delicious beignets. I had a beignet there. I was, I have to say, slightly disappointed. For those of you who haven't been to New Orleans, they have this so-called cuisine. And the highlight is the beignet, or one of the highlights, which is basically a piece of deep-fried dough. It's a donut without the hole in the middle. In this in this country, we call that vetkoek, and it is eaten by people who, well, I don't think they have taste buds, really. Anyway, it's covered in sugar, which makes it quite pleasant, with a cup of black coffee in the morning. Very pleasant place to go. I went to Bourbon Street for about 25 minutes. The smell of Bourbon Street made downtown Delhi smell like a perfumery, so I wouldn't recommend that necessarily. And then from there I went to New York, where my favourite part of New York was I went for a run. Both mornings I was there. I was only there for 2 nights. And I went for a run that ended up being 23 kilometers long. It wasn't intended to be that long, but to get lost in a new city which has all sorts of sights and sounds that you don't normally see at home is very special. So I walked and ran New York flat, which was just wonderful. Then I came home and went to the Eastern Cape with my mummy and my daddy. Bree, apparently you're deeply insulted that I've spoken ill of the beignet. I'm sorry about that. I did try 2 different places, and I felt so bloated after each occasion that I had to have a lie down. Every other piece of food that I ate there was delicious, especially the gumbo, which is a sort of a stew if you haven't eaten it. And all 3 places I ate gumbo. It was delicious. Anyway, those were my adventures. I wasn't mugged or attacked, which was wonderful. I did lose my luggage at one stage, but the good people at Delta managed to find it for me. The sun has come out and we're now on the eastern boundary, and we're going to head south down towards Chitwa now. We swing the wheel to the right-hand side. In the meanwhile, I believe that we are going to go across, as Kirsten says, to Taylor.
That's a new way of saying my name. Taylor. What else? Could the go-away birds also say Taylor? They could also say my name. They could also go Senzo. They could also do that. But Craig has to be the best one. You can do it with all the different names. You can get creative. Try it with yours at home. Send us a video. Yes, do that. That's exactly what you need to do. Let's create a bit of banter this afternoon amongst all of you who are watching. I think you should all upload a very short video, obviously, onto the Twitterverse, and of you saying your name, but in the same way that a go-away bird would say its name. Shall we play the call so you all know what I'm talking about? Let's do that. Let's go to the bird app. Now I need to go to Tarocco because it's in that family. Tarocco. Are you ready? Bring my phone to my mic. Kristen! See, it works for everyone. Okay. So now you've all got no excuse, you know what that sounds like. So here we go. Let's see. Hashtag SafariLive with your videos of you doing the go-away bird call with your name. That's exciting. Anyways, we were looking at a knobthorn tree, and I was saying to Rex, and I was like, where's the knobs? I can't see any knobs on this one. And it's true. You don't actually see knobs on all the knobthorns. And he says it's probably because it's quite an old one. It's been here for quite some time. It's a big one. It's really, really massive. It doesn't look like the elephants have pulled it to pieces, though. You can actually see on the ground. Oh, okay. So sorry. Right. Michelle, we've got some gremlins, I think. Anyways, I'm going to send you across to Steve while we quickly fix it.
Well, thank you, Taylor. I am crouched down in the grass. And what a marvellous scene this is. I'm pretending to be a leopard. I'm only joking. The grass I'm surrounded by, you can see this very tall thatching grass. This is called yellow thatching grass, one of the many thatching grasses. And we're talking about nutrient value. And these grasses are pretty much left alone purely because there is so much fibre in them. Now, when we're looking at nutrient value of a plant, it's not just the nutrient value. First of all, nutrient value and then palatability. And palatability is the ability of an animal to digest. So yes, there's nutrient value in thatch, there's nutrient value in a lot of plants, but there's so much chemical and cellulose in these as well that they're avoided and left alone because they're not edible. So there might be nutrients in there, but the animals aren't able to access the nutrients out of there. Elephants probably can because they've got such a poor digestive system. It's all hindgut fermentation, same as the zebra. It takes place in the back of the cecum, sort of the enlarged appendix, as you will. And so that's where a lot of the digestion will take place. But a wildebeest, a waterbuck, an impala would leave this stuff alone because there's so much cellulose. Nothing can break it down, so it'll just get left. And so this kind of grass really, really thrives in certain areas further away from water. And how does it get removed from the landscape? Well, not by being eaten, by being burnt. And when this burns, it creates an enormous fire. And you can see how there's a really nice big stand of it here, and then another patch over there, another patch over there. So when you're looking out in the wilderness at grasses, it's not just like your lawn back home. If you've got a nice kikuyu lawn back home, for example, there's not just one species like that out here. There is enormous amounts. If I just go down right where I'm here, let's see how many species I can pick up just from the small section. Are we ready? Okay, I'm going to grab. There's one. We've obviously got the thatching. Two. Ooh, what's that? That is not a very good area, actually, for me to be choosing these grasses. There's, oh, that one went in the nose. 3, 4, 5 grasses, 6 grasses, not a lot really, but it is this. Oh, here we go. As I move forward, it's starting to get a little bit better. As I move into sort of this shadier, less shady spot, we're going to get more grass. Here we go. Here's another one. So that thatching grass is kind of out competing anything in the area there. So if you want to get new grasses in, burning it will be the best option. But I've got one. It's blue seed grass. Very, very low in nutrient value, very, very low. This is something that the blue waxbill likes to make their nest with. So a very nice seed grass, but the leaf material that this produces is almost none, almost non-existent. Very small amounts of leaf, and the nutrients are low, and the leaf material is low. So if you look at it from a foraging score, from an edibility, very, very poor. That is the same one, and the same one. Sorry, I grabbed a couple of the same. Here is the herringbone grass, which is a grass that grows in quite disturbed areas. It is also regarded as having quite a low to medium sort of nutrient value, and growing in disturbed areas primarily it works to hold the soil together. So the grass that grow in disturbed areas, they hold the soil together because no one eats them. They will grow and they'll perpetuate. So also not an enormously favored grass, and that's another example of it, much better sort of picture. Okay, and then I have another one over here called one of the love grasses. Now, none of the love grasses really are enormously palatable. They all have an average sort of nutrient value and an average sort of leaf material. And then the last one that I had was indeed the thatching grass, which you can see here is kind of dominating the area. But that's how it works. And animals will select what they feed on. So if you walk through an area like this, the animals aren't going to just be mowing it like this. Joy, we do have spear grass in and around. I will find you some. I'll find you some spear grass. There's another one, the 3-horn grass. The reason we wear these funny things on our socks is because of this exact grass, and this is a pioneer species. So when animals move through here, they're very selective. Like you in the shopping center, you walk with your trolley and you have a look, especially if you're vegan or very organic, you have a look at the shelf, and you're very selective. You look at the labels, and then put it in the trolley. Animals are the same. They walk through here and they go, no, and they select their favorite choices. But if eventually over time all the good ones are gone, they have to move over to the bad ones. But that's why you see a lot of animals, especially your ruminants, start losing condition as the season gets dry and dry and dry, because all they've got left to feed on is thatching grass and grass with very low nutrients. And you can start seeing that in the bottom of the animal. They start losing, especially the browsers or the mixed feeders. They start losing condition. Okay. Not that I know of invasive grass species in this area. we don't have a permanent source of water coming through. So when you get a permanent river moving through an area, sort of like the Olifants River, the Crocodile River, the Limpopo River, those come from further upstream. They'll bring a lot of invasive plant species from upstream. We don't have many permanent rivers coming through, so we don't have such a problem. Yeah, I haven't found an invasive grass species yet. I'm still looking for a proper invasive itself, but thankfully there's not too many. And if they do get found, they will get removed before they proliferate. That is the objective. We want to keep these conservation areas free of invasive plant species. And I hope that add a little bit of information. Well, Minamu, that thatching grass I was pointing to you there, they don't really eat that. And there's another grass that I'll find for you called stink grass. The name stink grass is because it smells very funny. It smells like chemicals, and it burns beautifully. It loves to burn, but it doesn't get eaten. And there's another grass called turpentine grass. And do I need to say more about the turpentine grass? The smell of it, the taste of it is like turpentine, and it's designed to burn as well. So animals will avoid those grasses purely because there might be nutrients in it, but there's no digestibility. It's difficult to digest the chemicals. They like to leave the chemicals alone. Lots of grasses around. It's very dry now, so most of the seeds of the grasses are gone. So this is a difficult time of year to identify grass species if you don't have a keen eye for them. Thankfully, I've been studying and working with grasses for a very long time. You can ask Scott Dyson next time you get a chat with him. I assisted in training him in his grasses, but he has since forgotten. I think he put that memory out of his brain. Him and a couple other trainee guides spent a week with me doing a vegetation survey in the Kruger National Park, which they thought was going to be fun. Which was fun for the first day, and then the following 5.5 days were not as much fun as they thought it would be. But I do quite enjoy being out in the bush. Okay, well, it seems as if the bushwalk team is walking quite far. They're all the way up in the northeast.
Northwest? Northeast. That's where we are. Buffelshoek Dam is actually just down to the right of us. But, well, my attention was obviously caught by all these white bones here. For those of you who are fairly new to watching SafariLive, you will not remember this because you probably weren't watching, but once upon a time there was a buffalo, and we were experiencing the drought, so 2015, 2016, and then this buffalo got stuck in the mud and ended up dying in Buffelshoek Dam. I don't think he died because he was really stuck in the mud. I think he was just so weak he tried to go and have a drink and then, well, didn't come back up from that experience, which was a bit sad. Now, because there was very little water around, Buffelshoek Dam was almost dry. A dead buffalo in the water is not great. It will really contaminate all that water, and we didn't want that. So I think it was actually Rexon that ended up towing that buffalo out, and then they dragged it over here. Not one thing ate it. I think I saw a marabou stalk once around here. I think you may have all been with me. We didn't see any lions, we didn't see any hyena, we didn't see leopards, we didn't see cheetah, didn't see vultures, nothing fed on this buffalo. So it was really just left to deteriorate. Although a lot of the bones are all scattered now. I've taken the big skull from this buffalo back to the tent, and so that's a skull that you may have seen before, not the recent big one. This was a while ago. And I also took a couple of ribs. I think I even took the pelvis because it was so beautiful. This whole carcass at one point, it was just all intact. But then I think the hyenas, some birds and things, not birds, mammals have come through and actually nibbled on the bones. And if you look around here, you'll see here is an Inyala track. This track over here, this is from an Inyala. This teeny tiny little one might be from a little Dacre. It looks a bit too big to maybe be a Steenbok. And I'm sure there'll be a couple of Impala tracks around here too. Look, there's even a big old giraffe track over here. Now, all of those animals that I've just mentioned to you as we're coming into the winter months will start lacking a nutrient like Sorry, everybody, about that. Gremlins there. So what I was saying is that typically as we go into the drier months, and as Steve's been saying, the grasses aren't as nutritious as they normally are, and phosphorus is one of the most important nutrients that you'll find in vegetation. And then if they do start to experience a phosphorus or calcium deficiency, they'll come here and they'll start sort of gnawing on the bones. And what I was hoping to do was I was hoping to actually see some chew marks on some of these bones. Yeah, look here. See, that over there, that looks like it's been chewed on a little bit. I don't know by what, though. Joy, you know, it was been interesting. There were lots and lots of buffalo that weren't eaten in 2016, early 2017. So during sort of the peak of the drought. I'll try and find some more gnawing marks now, some more prominent ones. And there was just so much food around. I don't know if that buffalo was maybe sick and the meat was putrid, that nothing wanted to touch it. I have absolutely no idea what would have caused that. But we watched the Nkuhumas do exactly the same thing. Literally walk from dead buffalo to dead buffalo, turning their nose up, going, nah, they'd bite on it for a little bit and off they'd go. Some of them were still alive and slowly on their way out. It was a very, very hard time to sort of watch all these animals die really slowly. It wasn't a very quick death, especially if they were dying of starvation, essentially. So yeah, it was tough, but there were so many carcasses that just weren't touched. The flies and the maggots, however, and the carrion beetles, they all took care of it, but not much else. Now, what I've seen, though, is I've actually seen the Inyala chewing a lot of the rib bones. So let's see if I can turn this over. What? Okay, well, maybe I'll just wash my hands. Where's some good bits? I've got a really cool photo once of an Inyala. It had an entire rib bone in its mouth. It looked like, it was really cool to see. And quite bizarre to see, of course. And even the hyenas chewing on it. I'm just having a little look. Got to scavenge around, turn things over. I can't see anything, but they're often here. Giraffe are my favorite when they do it, because the way that they sort of stick their heads up into the air. Angie, so when I picked up that buffalo skull, I was actually just touching the horns. I was touching the keratin, which is fine. But you shouldn't really touch bones and things like that because they can carry anthrax. Although I don't know when there was a case of anthrax last in this area, probably years and years and years ago. However, the spores can also stay in the ground. Now, I'm almost certain that this buffalo died because of malnutrition. Because it was just really weak. We'd seen it in the morning, and then in the afternoon it wasn't alive anymore. I try not to when I can. So if I can grab an animal by the horns, by the skull by the horns, that doesn't bother me. But I don't like to pick up all these bones. So I will wash my hands at some point. Might have to try and see if there's the odd devil's thorn leaf about. That's a good thing to use as an antibacterial. No, I can't find any obvious chew marks on any of these bones. But they've definitely been chewing on them before. I mean, that's the reason why they're so spread out. Like I said, it was almost a complete carcass. And that's why I took some of those bones back, because they were perfect. The hyenas hadn't done too much to them. I thought I'd seen. Anyway, so it's quite cool to sort of see all these bones around here. Anyways. Any more? No. Maybe I took all the good bits back to the tent. I'll have to check all the ribs that are laying around the tent. I don't know why. I really am the skull collector. Anything I find, any bones and things that I find of interest, I always seem to just take them back to camp so we can have a closer look at them. The big buffalo horns are now in the DRC, which is where we live. So I need to transfer that to the tent at some point. Okay, I'm going to try and find something to wash my hands with now. Off you go back to Steve, who seems to be having a great chat about all the grasses.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you, Taylor. I am indeed. This will be my last chat this afternoon about grass. Then we go see if we can find Tingana. I'll try to get an update on the radio. But around me here, it's a very disturbed area, and this is all 100% covered in a grass called the 3-horn we were talking about before, which is a pioneer, which means this area gets intensively utilized. And our camp is just on the other side there. We always have wildebeest and impala and animals in this open area. So very, very highly utilized. But this grass moves back. It's got almost no leaf material at all. It's got a small root system, produces a lot of seed, but it's actually covering the ground now and doing exactly what a pioneer is meant to do, covering the ground from the sun, from water erosion, but no animal can really eat it. The wildebeest will feed on little bits, but really there's not much to go about it. But slowly but surely there'll be more shade, more organic material put in. Ideally, we need to remove all the animals for a while to take the stress off, but it's going to be a constant dynamic process. If you see that patch just at the back there, that sort of very open patch, that is a termite mound. Anything that grows on there, you can see, gets eaten, even the small little shrubs there, because the nutrients in that termite mound are much higher than in and around. So whatever grows on there is very, very, very important for providing food for animals in and around. Jane, the best form of seed dispersal, well, most grasses are either wind or waterborne. When it comes to seeds, some of them have evolved to move with ants, so insects, and then also ones like this are very good at getting in your socks and animal fur. Most of the seeds are gone already now, but I think they've all got their own merits, and depending on what system they use, determines how old they are. So if they're wind and water, they're probably very, very old. Insect dispersal, normally by ants. They take them under the ground to protect them against fire. And then when it comes to birds and mammals, those things are probably a little bit younger, because obviously to provide a fruit, for example, for something to eat, would have come much later in evolutionary history. But before we run along, we were asked a few grass questions before. Here is just one beautiful one. I like this one because this is called Eragrostis, the love grass. Era is the goddess of love, so very easy to remember. Eragrostis, and Superba, because they're beautiful big seed pods. It's also called sawtooth love grass or popcorn grass, because if you watch, it flies off just like that. Okay, so I think Joy asked me about spear grass. You like that magic trick, Kirst? Here's spear grass here. This is the perfect time of year for this grass. The reason why it's called spear grass is, can you see how sharp those little bits are over there? Very, very sharp, and they will poke into you. So this is what they do. See how they've all tangled around? Most of them have fallen off or in the soil somewhere. If I grab this off now, if you do this, just be careful, because this is the seed. That sharp bit there is the seed. The rest of it is just the awn. And the awn is only designed there for distribution. And this is water distribution. Have a look at this. I'm going to show you another magic trick. Some of you have probably seen this before. I'm going to put in my hand, Ferg, and I'm going to watch it twist. And that corkscrew motion that it does there is in order to push the seed into the ground after the rains come. So the cells of that awn are filling up with the small amount of saliva I just gave to them, and the objective is to push that seed underneath the soil in preparation for germination when the wet season comes. Isn't that just magical? And this is Mother Nature at its absolute best. I hope you can all see that. I'm not doing anything. I'm not manipulating this at all. The reason I said to hold the end very tightly is I've seen a guest do it, and he did it the other way, and he got that seed in the throat. And that wasn't very fun. Okay, so we're going to put that back on the soil. Hey, Phyllis and Gizmo, how nice is that, eh? Beautiful. So here is that grass I wanted to talk about, called stink grass. You can see there's the flower heads. This is just off the road verge. It's still a little bit green. When these plants are still green, the leaves are still a little bit edible. But it's beautiful to see. It's a Bothrocloa radicans, also known as pinhole grass. If you look closely with a lens, you can actually see there's little dots inside. It looks like you put a pin inside. But this stink grass, if I crush it, you want to smell, Ferg? Have a smell. Have a smell. It's very pungent. It's got a sweet sort of chemically smell, and it doesn't get eaten. When the leaves are green, just like that, yes, they'll probably get eaten. No, it's not good at all. It's like almost eating turpentine. So the objective of this, and maybe I'm not going to burn it. I think this whole area will go up. But if you burn this, it gives off a very sort of white smoke as it comes off. It's fantastic to burn. It gives off a lovely smell when it burns. It's not a bad smell, but the taste is It's all chemically. So that is designed to burn, but this accumulates around watering holes. It covers lots of ground and it holds the soil together. So when you get lots and lots of animals moving through, there is still that ecological sort of role holding the soil together. Kia, yes, there are controlled burns in the Sabi Sands, and Rexon and I were just chatting this morning. He's going to be thinking about burning a fire break or two in the next coming weeks, which will be fun. Now, hopefully I'm not on leave when that happens, because all boys are pyromaniacs. It's so much fun burning things. But controlled burns have to be put in to protect human life and infrastructure. So we'll burn blocks, fire breaks. There's a couple blocks that he would like to burn where they've done some bush clearing. So we'll do that in conjunction to obviously benefit the management goals for that area. Okay, well, please, if there are any more questions about grasses, don't hesitate to throw them my way. Brian, the long grass that lions and leopards hunt in is called the savanna. So basically anywhere where you get grass, you could find lions or leopards hunting. The grass that attracts the animals to feed, it could be any one of them. It really is dependent on the situation and where they're hunting. Obviously this open area, a lot of the animals favor coming there to protect themselves against lions and leopards. It doesn't always work. And then on the other side it's a little bit thicker, and then it's also difficult to escape the predators. So the objective is to keep your eyes open, and the leopards and lions will disappear into the smallest of grass coverings. So there's not a specific grass that the lions will say, oh, this looks like the grass to hunt in. It could be absolutely anywhere. We'll go past the dam shortly, and we'll see how Tingana was hiding in just a little bit of grass like this morning. And we had Hukumuri, the other male leopard, on Saturday, and he was fast asleep in grass, and landowners came to view him and they couldn't even find him. And the grass was this long, so they are well adapted to it. So interestingly enough, there are 92 species of grass in the Greater Kruger Park, but only 11 or 12 of them are important for management purposes. So that makes it a lot easier to learn. So anyway, we're going to move on. I'm going to get on the radio, see if I can get an update on the movements of Tingana.
I don't know if he would have been moving around too much, not as much as this beautiful big kudu bull that's just disappearing from us. There are actually a couple of them, but they didn't seem to enjoy our presence very much and have swiftly moved on. But they are massive, massive, massive animals, especially when you see them on foot. You really begin to realize how tall they are. I mean, the length of a kudu's horns, maybe not quite as tall as I am, but definitely sort of close. And those were not small boys either. So we got a report on the radio that there was a herd of elephants around Spaghetti Junction. Now that's near Chele Pan. So what we've decided to do is jump onto some of these roads, and now we're marching. Obviously you can see Senzo's walking really quickly, I'm walking really quickly, and Rexon is walking even faster so that we can try and get down into that area, because we're a little way away. So we're obviously at Buffelshoek Dam, so we're on Inyala Road North now. We're going to use it. Amanda, that's something I have not seen in a very long time. I check myself every single day after a bushwalk is for ticks, as you can imagine. Now, if there were going to be any ticks, you would find that they'd probably be on the edge of the road like this, because not only do we as the humans obviously use the roads to navigate, but so have the animals. So they'll sit on pieces of grass like this, and then also on the big animal pathways. However, I haven't seen any ticks for quite some time now. Every now and then you'll see the odd little sort of like black thing or reddish black thing on a piece of grass. That's normally going to be a tick just holding on there, just waiting for a mammal of sorts to pass by. But they're nowhere near in the numbers that there are when we have some rain. All the insect life is starting to disappear, other than a couple of butterflies still around, not seeing so many grasshoppers. And I think all those nymphs of the grasshoppers that we were seeing have all molted sufficiently and have all turned into adults and are elsewhere now. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. Some spiders around, like I said, some butterflies, the odd praying mantis. Do you know where we do see a lot of insects is at night in camp when we have the lights on, and obviously the lights are attracting bugs of sorts, from midges to moths to beetles, and then that of course attracts some of the predators. So we do see a lot of big praying mantises, giant stick insects and things like that hanging around camp, which is really quite nice to see in the evenings. Otherwise it's you know, fairly quiet, but that's to be expected. The months of summer and spring are the best for the insect life. Kia, you said it would be really cool to see a rhino tick. The only time I've ever seen them is on the mammals. I haven't actually ever seen one like on the ground and crawling around. Summer's really crazy, and I think I've showed it to you before, where once we were actually near where the dam cam is now, and we were on bushwalk, and the next minute I'd gone, oh cool, a tick. So we'd stopped and we pointed at it, and that tick changed direction because it obviously sensed that, wow, cool food. Yum, and started racing as quick as a tick can go to, which was quite fast. It was actually quite terrifying. And this thing then climbed up onto my shoe and was obviously going, woohoo, dinner soon. But you didn't let that happen. But yeah, so then they literally just start crawling towards you. And a lot of the insects are all estivating now. They're keeping away. The cold weather's not particularly nice. There's not a lot of food around for them anymore. So a lot of the larval stages of the insects will be feeding on grass and leaves and fruits and all sorts of things, which that obviously is not around as much anymore. I was wondering in the bush willow pods if there would still be any little larvae in here. It's one of my favourite things, and it's a pity I don't have my Leatherman with me. Hang on. Oh, look at all the spiders. What are you? They're like these green spiders. That's so cool. They look like lynx spiders. They must be. That's amazing. And I think what I initially saw was, in between this bush willow pod, there's a bit of white. I'm not going to stick my fingers in there now. And I think that's maybe where the eggs were laid. This is interesting. I've never seen the eggs of a lynx spider before. I assume that that's a lynx spider. There's just the shape of the body, the very, very prominent hairs on the legs. That's very, very typical. And I think we came to the conclusion that the other one I saw the other day was a green lynx spider. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is green lynx spiderlings. They're so cool. There's so many of them. No, I don't think the adult would necessarily be around. I don't think that they look after their young. Gizmo, you said this is creepy. Yes, we should have seen this in the mist this morning. Then it would have been really, really eerie. I wasn't even going to show you this, but this just surprised me. So apparently there's still a couple of little spiders around. You've just got to look for them quite carefully. And hang on, I'm trying to see where I can hold this branch, and I'm not going to disturb anyone. No! This is so cool! Wait, Senzo, are you ready? Mom is here. Mom, green lynx spider, is here. I was telling you, folks. Senzo, I think if you go on your knees and look down, and right underneath here. Can you see? Sorry, I'm making sense. He's now in the lunge position. Because I was like wondering, so that I don't know if they came from that, or if it's maybe another spider's web. But look up and underneath there, you can see there's a really big one. So how cool is that? These must be fairly newly hatched then. So I don't think Mom is maybe necessarily actively looking after them. But perhaps they've only just recently hatched and they're going to spend a couple of days, maybe a week with her before they decide to disperse. But that confirms it being a green lynx spider. That's amazing. I would never have guessed that. I'm also coming to have a look. All those little ones around her. Amazing. Anyways, the animal that we've been trying to find, of course, is the elephants, but Steve has beaten us to it.
Yes, well, there are 4 of them. 3 in frame and 1 coming up behind, which we'll see shortly. Okay, we can see him on the dam cam. Well, that's probably this one. He just got a bit of a fright from some impala that ran past. He's now looking a little bit sheepish. Head in the air. Tail, that's a very good sign of an elephant that's not happy. when their head lifts up, you can see the head is high and the tail is stiff. And it's not very relaxed. And that's because sometimes when animals run past elephants, they get a bit of a fright. And it's a young bull. And he's also giving this other small breeding herd, this female with her 2 calves, well, adolescent calves, a little bit of a hard time. She's not very happy with him. We will see how this plays out now as he gets closer. I'm just going to move up a touch here. So we do have someone going to come in next to me. Sorry about that. Here we go. There, she's not very happy with him. Just going to move there. See how she turned on him there. He's given her a bit of a nudge, and then off she goes with her youngsters. He's way too young to be actively interested in her, but she might be reproductive, and he thinks he's got a shot, but he's nowhere near as big as the biggest elephant bulls around. Nowhere near as big, and she doesn't want a youngster. She likes older men. Doesn't she, Ferg?
They all do.
Yeah. Yay, Ellies! Okay, well, let's move along here and see if we can get a little bit of a look. Yes, they are, Timothy. I absolutely love Ellies. What have you got? We've got some birds in the sky. They look like storks. They are. Marabou storks, looks like. If they're moving a little bit fast. We had a little bit of an issue with there were beautiful clouds. Oh, they are moving quite far away, Ferg. They look like storks to me.
Oh yeah, sorry, this camera doesn't work.
Well, we're having a bit of a difficulty with, there's a tripod screw issue. We will sort it out, don't you worry. Let's go have another look at these Ellies. Okay, well, that's moving right in here. They're about to come out again for us. So I think, sorry, Kirst, if we just have one last look, they're coming out into the open for us. There they are. And their behavior is, I think, being influenced by that bull at the back there. They're not quite enjoying his attentions because he is obviously maybe a little bit interested, and the females are saying no. No, elephants do not mark territory. In fact, elephants are not territorial. They have what we call a home range, and they move really, really large distances in order to secure enough food for themselves. And I have made a blinding error. That one at the back is not actually a male. It is a female. Now that I'm seeing it. So it's very interesting to see what's going on with their behavior here. Is it the short trunk female? I can't see. But something is disturbed. The Tingana is somewhere in the area here. It's a little family of 4. Tingana is in the area here. So maybe it was the smell of a leopard that's caused them to react like this. It's not the presence of our vehicles. There you go. You can see that she is lactating in the front. And they're about to cross the road and go down into the Umulwati drainage, where there'll be plenty of vegetation for them to feed on. You might get a little view of a vehicle. We've just got Texan from Juma has just joined us in the sighting. He's going to come give us a hand to find Tingana, who we believe is somewhere in there. Somewhere in there. We're not 100% sure. We're going to make an effort to see if we can find. But in the meantime, let's go over and see what McCurdy is up to and where she's walking.
I'm out of breath. I'm exhausted. We're marching. We're still trying to get to our elephants. I don't even know where we are anymore. Are we still on Inyala Road North? Whew, it's a long road when you've got to walk it, let me tell you. So, okay, we're just deciding to stick to this route because it is a lot quicker. And we don't know which herd of elephants we're going to get. It sounds like there's 2 different breeding herds. Obviously, Steve has got a herd that are about Gowrie Catline around Voyatella Dam. And then there was reports of another herd at, like I said, Spaghetti Junction. So at some point, we're hoping to intercept one of those herds to view them. But we're trying to march as quick as we can. I shouldn't have done any sprints today. That was a mistake. Let me tell you. We'll also have a guessing game in a minute. Sue, they try to make noises and rumble and trumpet and all sorts of things, but when an elephant is quite young, just as I suppose a baby human needs to learn to talk, young elephants need to learn how to make the various sounds too. So I'm sure that just comes with age. So often you hear a young elephant going, "This is the most high-pitched trumpet you've ever heard in your life." So it's quite funny how that works, don't you think? How even with young animals, their voices are very sort of high-pitched, just like children, human children. Well, of course, what other children do you get? Anyways, if I'd said kids, then I could have been like goats, but I didn't. And everyone seems to have very high-pitched voices, from lions going wow, 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 to elephants going all sorts of things. And then slowly but surely their voices become a lot deeper. So it is quite funny when they do try. My favorite is when a little elephant puts its trunk in its mouth, and then I don't know what it does. It also tries to blow, and it makes the most bizarre sort of sounds. It's always quite interesting to watch. Now, was it yesterday? 2 afternoons ago, we were walking the exact same place, and on the other side of this drainage line were the lions. This is where the Styx Pride were, down over there. But apparently the Styx Pride have gone into Mala Mala. They crossed south today. Now I'm trying to figure out what Pride of Lions is in Torchwood. It's probably going to be the Torchwood Pride then, because apparently there was some tracks crossing from Chitwa directly into Torchwood. And they were also hearing roaring and things like that. So perhaps it's the Torchwood Pride. Well, that's nice. No berries. This is a kubu berry tree over here. And a little while ago, maybe about 3 weeks ago, they were all filled with berries. But it seems as though this one doesn't have any at all. Nothing. Nope. Okay, so we will carry on. We'll keep marching. Brexton wants to see elephants. Trish, most certainly, with the lack of nutrients in the vegetation, it's fairly sort of certain that these animals are going to have to start feeding for longer hours. So even though elephants will increase the time that they feed, it's still not going to be enough for them, and that's why we still see animals losing condition. Rexon is pointing to the floor. This is a reason as to why. Come have a look here. This is a nice one. Why we come and check the roads. And over there, this is a leopard track, female leopard track walking. I'm not going to say her name out loud, but it's most likely THANDI's tracks that have been walking here. Don't like to say her name. Come all the way around the corner. Oh, look how busy they were. Still walking here. Like she's done a big circle and then gone straight back this side. Okay. Now these tracks were not here, I don't think, this morning. These, I think, are new tracks. Yeah, look. They're all over this morning's footprints, this morning's tire tracks. So that's another possibility, is that there could be a big cat in the area. So best we keep our eyes peeled. Anyway, Steve has got a feathered friend.
Yes, we do. Well, if there was a leopard nearby, this is one of the birds that shouts very loudly. And now what's very interesting, I mean, I know I've spent a bit of time talking about grass. And now, first of all, the pile that this thing is scratching is a pile of rhino dung, a rhino midden, and that is a crested francolin. And so we talk about the grass and the fact that the rhino is not a very selective feeder. They feed on an enormous amount of grass, which is the theme, it seems, for the afternoon. And they come and deposit it here in a big compost pile, which then provides enormous amounts of insects, seeds, and habitat for an enormous amount of birds and other species to make use of. So not only is the grass important from the ecological role of covering the ground and fire and providing food, but in its second state, through a very poorly digested system like that of a rhinoceros or an elephant, there is enormous amounts of insects that will grow in there. Some birds, such as the francolins and guinea fowls, will actually feed on some of the fermenting sort of grass material that is sort of left in the dung. Also looking for lots and lots of seeds that have been deposited in there as well. So, very, very interesting indeed. Dalsif, you want to know about invasive species and benefits to native species. Well, I'm sure there will be at some point, but it is still very new. For an invasive species to start providing benefit, it first needs to become naturalized. And once it becomes naturalized, does the evolution of things around them start to evolve? So what is interesting, I was talking this morning about the black wattles, and a friend of mine, it's not a scientific study, but down in the Cape, he saw a thicket of black wattle in the drainage system, and in that thicket he found at least 3 different Narina trogon, which is a very special bird, beautiful bird, and there are not many of them around. He found them living in a thicket of invasive plants. So for me that's quite interesting, although the invasive plants, specifically that tree, causes a huge degradation to the environment. So it takes time for an invasive plant to get naturalized and for things to work well for them. But I'm sure there's possibly some things happening as we speak, but I can't think off the top of my head. I don't think it's been long enough. A lot of our invasive species have come in from 100 to 150 years ago. A lot of them came in with horse feed from Argentina during the Anglo-Boer War in the late 1800s. They brought all the grazing. The British brought all their grazing and hay and whatever for their horses that they were fighting against the Boers. Very interesting war that shaped the history of South Africa forever. So a lot of the species have come from there, from Mexico, from South America. So very similar sort of environments, but completely different when it comes to the evolutionary scale of things. Jonathan, I don't control animal populations, but the methods for controlling animal populations come in 2 forms, or 3 forms. Culling, which is the large-scale removal of a population through obviously death, and then you utilize their resources. That is a large scale. Then you also get cropping, which is a selective removal of animals out the landscape, and that generally can be referred to as hunting. And then you also get birth control, which is whereby people will either artificially inseminate, or not artificially inseminate, but sterilize females or males, either through injections or through surgery. No condoms, Ferg, no condoms, but or no education. You can't educate the animals to be wise and condomize, but it's invasive to go into dart an animal and to tie her tube, so to speak, or to dart them with a sterilizing drug. It's not natural, but it is one of the things that small reserves within South Africa do, because they don't have a big enough area for the lions to be breeding, for the elephants to be breeding. So there it's very highly intensively managed. But in the Kruger Park, in the Greater Kruger Park, none of that happens. There would be some culling that's happened for a very long time. I don't know if it's still happening in most parts, and there is still selective hunting that happens in certain private reserves. None in the Sabi Sands. Hunting and ecotourism don't really go on the same level. I hope that answers your question. And that's obviously for animal species exclusively. We did experience a drought recently that saw a huge decline in buffalo and hippo, and because of the reduction in the feeding material, the grass material around, and the loss of water as a habitat for the hippo, they actually took the measures to go and cull buffalo and hippo, purely because it would degrade the environment further and animals would starve and die through starvation. So they selectively did it as a management means, and then they utilized the resources at the same time. So unfortunately we are in an area that needs to be controlled. There needs to be human influence because we put the fences in the first place. I know everybody hopes we could have this wild and manic environment that needs no control. Unfortunately, we're long past that in the world we live in today. And if we want to maintain it as natural as possible, there needs to be some human intervention. To a point. The larger your area, the lower your management is required. The smaller the area, the higher the management. But the Greater Kruger National Park, with its borders into Mozambique, just the Kruger itself, we're looking at about 4.4 million acres, and they've doubled that into Mozambique, so you look at about 8 million acres. You think that's big enough? It's not big enough, I'm afraid. We need more. So Transfrontier National Parks and dropping of fences and biosphere reserves, Transfrontier National Parks, all part and parcel of increasing the surface area for animals and species movement, so we don't have to control them. But I pose your question, are we going to control ourselves? That is the question. Dun dun dun. Okay, so Rexon was on the radio. He's gone on that way to check the last position. I've come around this way. He was in front of me, so I thought I'd do a bigger loop. But we're looking for, because one of the landowners left in Ghana in the block there. Wasn't Texan, so I might have said Rexon a moment ago. So we're going to just utilize the radio to see if we can find exactly where they left the Duke sleeping this afternoon.
Look at what we found. We found ourselves an Inyala staring straight at us, standing dead still. Not too sure about what it's going to do. If she's going to run forward and join the rest of the herd, or if she's just going to stand there staring at us all afternoon. See, she's using the freeze technique now. Oh, no, not really. Oh, there's a... We'll get to them in a minute. But the rest of the group is off to the left, which is where this youngster is going now. It looks like you're wearing black shoes, high heels. Has she been in the mud? I'm just opening my binoculars. Oh no, it's not. She's got very dark feet. Beautiful though. Now, it isn't alone, so don't worry in case you are panicking. There are lots and lots of Inyala around. They're all spread out, even Senzo to the right of you. Look there. There's another young bull. Just through the bushes. Just sort of feeding. I don't even think this one knows that we're here. It hasn't lifted its head up once. It might get a fright and run away. That's very dangerous, the fact that it hasn't acknowledged us. Now imagine if there was a leopard creeping around here. It would do a very good job and probably be able to catch this youngster. Again, that all comes with experience. Make sure you watch your surroundings. But I suppose these Inyala aren't looking at us as a threat at the moment. If they thought that we were really going to cause them some trouble, they would have started barking at us, as they normally do with the leopards. So I'm going to creep forward to see if we can see the others. Maybe. Nah, they're too far. I think it's all just got to do with, I suppose, the geography of the landscape here. I mean, eland are beautiful animals, and they do occur in the Greater Kruger National Park. However, from what I've seen with eland is they do prefer sort of a little bit more arid areas, and you'll often find them up on escarpments and mountains and things like that. They seem to be very well equipped to be able to negotiate some of those sort of rocky pathways, and well, just up and stuff and into the mountains. I mean, look at the, for example, while we were in the Mara, there were always eland up on top of the escarpment and along the hills going down into the triangle, but we never really saw them anywhere else up and then around here. I'm trying to think where I've seen eland as a kid, but I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot remember the area. Let's ask Rexon. Rexon, where in Kruger can you see eland? All the way in the north. Porphyry. Okay, so pass all the way past Satara, You just keep going north to an area called Pafuri, and that's where you'll see sort of eland. It becomes very, very sort of dry. And I think I've told you the story before. Eland really struggle when it comes to areas with high rainfall. And most of the time it's because of ticks. And we saw it in the Eastern Cape where we actually had to start dipping the eland. Now, the eland didn't naturally occur down there. They were introduced, but they did fairly well with us helping them slightly. This was on a very small game reserve, and every game reserve has got its different conservation sort of views. And on this one, they wanted to bring the eland in, and they noticed that they were dying. The youngsters, not the adults necessarily, but the young calves couldn't make it over a year. They'd all die. I couldn't work out what was wrong. And they were just absolutely covered from head to toe in ticks. Now, we know that ticks are very important, and every single animal out here will either have a combination of mites and a variety of ticks, but it's healthy, it's normal for them. But these guys were just covered, and they were obviously getting a variety of tick-borne diseases. So what they would do is every now and then, I think they try to do it once a month or so. We had these, I've forgotten the name of what they're called, but it's basically a type of a feeder where they step on a pressure release thing and it sprays the dip onto them when they go and feed. So they'd put food, just for the life of me I cannot remember what this specific thing is called. They'd put sort of pellets and things in a little trough, and then as they got to them it would just spray all the dip on them, and then that would help control the ticks slightly. So again, where in sort of more dry, arid areas you don't see a huge population of ticks. They are definitely around, but where there's a lot of water about and the rainfall is high, you will see bigger populations of ticks. Yeah, I can't tell you, we tried to save eland after eland, youngsters, and there was just absolutely nothing we could do for them. And they always say, this is what the vets told us, when you get a young eland calf, that's another animal with massive ears in comparison to its body size for the first couple of months of its life. If those ears flop, which they don't normally do, if they flop and they're hanging when they're young, they're very ill, and the chances of them coming back is very slim. It could mean a number of different things, but that's normally one of the signs you can tell when an eland calf is healthy or not. If its ticks are sort of floppy, then they're not doing okay. It was quite sad. And I think I told you, we went and we tried to rescue one. I was with a friend of mine, David. Actually, maybe you remember him. David came for an interview. And anyways, we were out, and I think it was on bushwalk, and he'd seen this eland, so he said, let's go get it and see if we'll rehabilitate it. So as we fetched it and we helped him carry it to the car, and by the time we put it in the back of the vehicle and we got back home, our arms and our legs and every part of us, and the same thing happened with the zebra foal too, we were covered in welts. So we don't know if it was a mite or what it was, but that eland didn't live. It lived for I think about a week, and then unfortunately it passed on. We were doing everything we could. We bathed it, we were giving it supplements and feeding it high sort of protein milk, and we phoned the wildlife vets and they gave us all the tips that we needed, but nothing worked, unfortunately, and it was very sad. But it was crazy just to see if it wasn't, I don't think it was an allergic reaction, I think it was something that was actually biting us, maybe some mites of some sort that were transferred from this animal onto us, and that's why it's important. And it was a good, valuable lesson for us, is that actually not to pick up wild animals like that, because you don't know what's wrong with them, and you could quite easily, like what we did, get bitten by something, by parasites, and that's not very nice at all. You don't want to pick up a disease or anything like that, or bacteria, so rather let everything, let nature take its sort of course. But we did every now and then try and rehabilitate the antelope species, and we were lucky. There was the warthog, Emma. There was Billy the bushbuck. I don't know if Billy the bushbuck ever grew horns. It was a male bushbuck, and we didn't see any horns poking through at all, even when it was about a year old. Nothing, which was perfect, because he was quite naughty, that bushbuck, and he lived around the lodge, and he'd headbutt you if you wanted milk, so best he didn't, of course, have horns. Anyways, we're still getting closer and closer to our destination of hopefully finding some elephants. Steve has now moved on from the pachyderms and is rather trying to find a leopard.
I am trying to find a leopard. I am following the very faint tracks of a Land Cruiser into the wilderness here. And that's all I have to go by. There's a little bit of movement in the grass, and hopefully we will find the Duke at the end of the trail. Slowly getting there, I think. But remember, someone asked me before, what grass do leopards and lions hunt? And well, it's this grass, and it's invisible. That seems to be the end of the trail with regards to vehicle tracks. Hello, Sonny Frank. You would like to know what the difference is between the savanna and the lowveld. Well, the savanna essentially is one of many biomes, and the biome is actually classified by rainfall and climate. And that is essentially what defines a biome. And then within that biome, because of the rainfall and climate, you get a specific type of vegetation. So here in the lowveld where we are, we're quite low down. Further to our west, we get the highveld, so it's much higher up. There's an enormous plateau, or escarpment we call it. And there's also savanna up top there in places, but that's called highveld savanna. And down here is called the lowveld savanna. Also called bushveld. So savanna is just a biome, just like forest is a biome, grassland is a biome. So the major vegetation unit there would be grass. In forest, the major vegetation unit would be trees. And savanna, it's a mixture of the two. So that is it, really. And here in the lowveld, the temperature is pretty mild compared to the highveld where you get frost. So that's really it. We are in the lowveld. And the entire lowveld is made up of savanna. Just like the entire country of Botswana and Zimbabwe, almost 99% of Mozambique and 95% of Zimbabwe is made up of savanna, with very small portions of other biomes within there. I hope that answers your question. So anyway, this is where the tracks lead to, vehicle track. I might have to have a little scratch around in the sand to see if I can find exactly where they might have turned from this point. But while we look, we might look to see if there is in fact a leopard nearby. Before I get out and have a look, let's first have a look if he's not just lying flat here in the grass, because it seems as if this is where the tracks stopped. Where's that bell we've been talking about, Ferg? That bell that you just go ding, 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 and the leopard pops its head up? Joking, we have not been talking about that.
Pavlov's leopard.
Pavlov's leopard. Okay, not sure. I don't see him. So I'm going to have a little look around, though, and see where those tracks came from. Excuse my absence. I will be talking you through it all. See, nothing went further here from a vehicle point of view, I don't think. So they definitely came to Righteous. There's a very good chance, folks, that he just got up and walked away. It is cooler now. We might go back and check Vuyatela Dam. That's just on the other side there. There was some impala. His favorite food. Yeah, so the tracks have just come straight to this point. Very good chance he was just lying around here somewhere this morning when they left him. Got to think like a leopard now. So what would the leopard want to do? He's hungry, he's possibly thirsty. Water is that way. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. No. Okay, well, while we mosey on and get back out of this block, let's go back over to Taylor.
Mosey on back to us. We just got to walk through the thick sand. Now, we're trying to find our elephants still. I think we're fairly close now. We're just going to head back west a little bit. I thought we were going to get a cool elephant hole here. Well, it looks like the Ellies at some point were standing in here. Perhaps they're just having a bit of a sand bath, or maybe they were starting to dig for water. I don't think this is a good spot to dig for water, though. I think you'd be digging and digging and digging for days until you got to water here. I found a little bit further down is much better. I was going to try, and I was like, nah, the sand is so thick. It's going to take ages. I'll be digging here until tomorrow afternoon, especially just with my hands. So I won't do that. But at some point, I will show you how sort of good the water table is in this area, and especially just underneath here in the Mulwati. That's where we're walking. So those elephants, We're apparently coming this way, and I think we're going to find them fairly shortly. But while we head in that direction, march to the thick sand, back you go to Steve.
Okay, well, before we move out of here, Fergus has spotted the golden orb in the sky, slowly sinking into the horizon. And we do try daily to document the rise and fall of the sun. It is always beautiful and always a spectacle. Always a marvelous time of the day. And it's also a good time to reflect and to listen to the African wilderness. It is a very still afternoon. So we're going to allow you to just listen for a moment, and let's see if we can hear anything at all. It is very still. There's not a sound anywhere to be heard. And so that is essentially the savanna that we're looking through with the sun setting. And the savanna itself is made up of many different types of savanna. You get dry savannas and wet savannas and sort of in-between savannas. So savanna is just the broad ecological term or group given to a mixture of grass and trees. Obviously, when that gets dominated by grass and the tree disappears, there are different climatic factors involved. For example, frost. And that is obviously influenced because of altitude. The higher you go, the colder it gets. And in the Lowveld itself, we sort of have a rainfall gradient from the south of the Lowveld to the north that decreases. And what's interesting enough is under the ground, from the south to the north, there's also a very big change in the soil type, the geological formations, which give rise to, I think, 38 different vegetation types within the Kruger National Park alone. That's very cool. We look at a soil map, you can overlay the soil map, the vegetation map, and have this very interesting dynamic with regards to the shift in the rainfall. I really, really like it. Okay, well, we are going to see what we can do with this situation. Don't know where the Duke has gone, but he is not here. Michelle, I couldn't hear a bird either. I can hear a go-away bird now. Down there. That is our way out. Let's see if perhaps the Duke is on the move. The Duke of Djuma Tingana. And the Lowveld is also full of holes from aardvarks digging. And this is an area we get a lot of aardvark diggings. And there's another hole over here. Am I going to hit it?
Keep going.
Ah, Fergus, you know what's marvellous is that moon over there. Why don't we have a little look? The moon with those clouds. And while we do that, we'll have another listen to see, in fact, if that go-away bird is making proper noise or if he's just saying good night to his partner in crime. It will be full moon, I think, either tomorrow or the next day, judging by the distance it is from the horizon at the moment. It almost looks full, doesn't it? Now, a full moon normally coincides with the exact time it rises, at the exact time the sun sets. And that's what makes it full. And as Ralph Kirsten said last time, the waves are going to be cooking down by the coast. Ralph is on holiday now, so Ralph, wherever you are, I hope you're going to be enjoying the surf the next few days. Some well-deserved leave. The full moon causes high tides, extreme high tides called spring highs, and then spring lows as well. Causes the water levels to be as high as they normally are, and then also as low as they can be. So those hunter-gatherers on the beaches Be prepared to go in deep to look for your mussels that get stranded. Your shore foraging parties, some oysters perhaps. Okay, well, we're going to try get out of this block and see if we can find absolutely any sign of the Duke of Juma.
Right, I'm whispering now. You can guess what that means. We actually gave an elephant cow and her calf a bit of a fright. We were walking up and we couldn't see what was just behind this wall of trees. And there was an elephant and her calf, and they saw us before we saw them. They blended in very, very well with all the branches. So now scrubby dung, my favorite thing, that we'll be using to test the wind. But I think if we go up here, we're going to follow Rex. Gotta be quiet. Walk here with me. So we don't know really where they are or how many elephants they are. But we obviously don't want to give these animals a fright, so we're just being a little bit cautious. We don't know what mood the elephants are in. Which side would you like to stand, Sensor? Which side are you going to walk on? It's very tough because it's very thick here. Yeah, we'll try and get a view. But also we're losing light, so we'll see how it goes. Go back down we go. Can't get a view, they must have moved away. Raj, I'm glad you're being very, very quiet, because if you're making a noise, those elephants would hear you. You don't have to be quiet, you can make lots of noise. I have to be quiet. And I have to remind myself that I have to be quiet because I'm never quiet. We're also listening for any branches that are breaking or any trumpeting, any sounds that will point us in the direction of some elephants. Anyways, we're going to keep going and see if we can get a good view and also be safe. James, however, is back with us and he's got a view of the sunset.
Well, the sun has just disappeared. We don't have a view of it anymore, but that's normal this time of the day. The sun quite often disappears, and so it has today. We're sitting at Chitwa Dam. The hippos are hooting. The staff in the camp are shouting, bashing planks and things, which of course they have to at this time of the day. There's no other time of the day for them to do it. And the western sky is ablaze with winter dust. You don't get this in summer, of course, because there isn't the same amount of dust in the air. Well, that is very pretty. I believe the moon has come. Oh, yes, Sebastian, you spotted the moon as well. You tell me when you're ready to go to it. Ready to go to it?
Yeah.
And apparently Steve has beaten us to it and shown you the moon. Let me tell you that I believe you were talking about Ralph surfing. If Ralph is surfing right now, he's got a very thick wetsuit on, because Ralph lives not 25 kilometers down the beach from my parents. And the sea there, I swam in it a few times when I was on holiday, for no longer than 10 seconds each time. It is very cold, It looks like a wave that Ralph might be surfing, actually. And so Ralph will be wearing a thick wetsuit. There we go. That's quite pretty, really. Dilip, the river that flows into the Chitwa Chitwa waterhole is the Molwanini River. This is where it terminates. It is a tributary of the Mlwamati, which in turn is a tributary of the Manyeleti, which in turn, I think, anyway, in turn is a tributary of the Sand River, which in turn is a tributary of the Sabi River, which in turn eventually flows, if I'm not mistaken, into the Limpopo before it hits the sea. Does it? I don't actually know if that's true. I think I'm lying to you. I apologise. I don't think it does. I think it flows into the Crocodile River, which eventually goes into the sea, somewhere around Mozambique. One hates to think what the quality of the water is like between the Drakensberg and here, where some of the water rises, once it's passed through the farmlands of South Africa and got anywhere near Maputo in Mozambique. Around here you can see it's clearly perfectly adequate for the hippopotami. I read something interesting about hippopotami the other day, and that is that their dung creates a state of eutrophication which will kill fish and various other organisms that live in the water. So if you think back to last year, or the year before specifically, when we had that terrible drought, and the hippo that lived in the little pan where we had Tingana this morning in front of the dam cam, that completely eutrophied, and so it became anaerobic. There was no oxygen in it at all, and that's what wipes out the fishes. Not that that's ever had fishes, but it would have meant a huge reduction in aquatic insect life as well. So hippos play an important role in aquatic ecosystems as well, from the point of view of providing nutrients and obviously keeping populations in a certain state. Not necessarily good or bad, but they have a role. I must say, on a day like today, it's starting to get a little chilly at this time of the day, and it's quite pleasant to know that I don't have to get into the cold water and put a little blankie over my leggies. Stay warm. Ralph Kirsten will be no doubt starting a fire at his house. Yes, I believe you can hear a bit of banging now. As I say, what have you got? The drongo. Right above us. Little drongos flying right above us. As I was saying, yes, you can hear banging in Chitwa, but it's impossible for the maintenance crew to do anything while there are guests in the camp. And so they have no choice but to do it when the guests are on drive. That is marvellous. The sky is on fire. Now, before Taylor becomes too dark, no, Taylor's not going to get dark. It is going to get dark around Taylor. Let's go back to her and her elephant.
No, summer is over. I'm definitely going to be all very pasty. However, I'm whispering. I have to whisper because we are with the elephants, as you can see, but we are below them. They're up. I hope you can all hear me okay. This is the softest you'll ever hear me speak, ever. I don't even think I've ever whispered once at home before. It's really difficult. But there's a huge herd. They're just all very happily feeding. It's the same group of elephants that Steve had. I'll just check something. I wonder if that elephant cow has got half the trunk or if she's got her whole trunk, the one we're looking at. I'm just looking through my binoculars at the moment. the tip of it. That's so cool. And if it is the short trunk, if it is the same short trunk elephant, that was, I think, the group of elephants I saw on my interview drive, if I'm not mistaken, at Mamba Junction with the Mulwati. I'll never forget that. It was really awesome. It was really something so special. But there's a whole group of them, so if you come back here, you might see some more. We're just climbing up a little bit higher. Be careful this time. Oh no, they've moved. You see, there's another one. Like I said, it's very difficult to see. But we are actually very safe. Very, very safe at the moment. Because we've got this huge embankment in front of us. So the elephants will feel sort of as if they're in control if they do pick up on us and they do want to give us a bit of trouble. I highly doubt that elephant would run down such a steep bank to try and get to us. So it's always, always so important when you're guiding, is that it doesn't matter how good of a guide you are, things can go wrong, whether it was your fault or whether something else had happened. We don't know what's on the other side of those elephants, and a leopard could sneak past and frighten them and they could come running to us. Remember, misplaced aggression is a very real thing. When an animal feels threatened by something else, but you happen to be in the area, and they take it out on you, or kind of like when you see hippos killing animals in the water, often it's not because of that specific animal. There might be crocodiles or a predator nearby, and then they get angry and try and go for the predator. And then, well, whatever mammal it is sometimes gets in the way. So you have to be very careful. So big trees, drainage systems, I know I bring this up often, but it's so important, especially if there are any guides, new guides that are watching and are training and are learning to eventually join and do these bushwalks. It's so, so, so important. Stop, listen, constantly keep checking the wind. However, the wind down here, again, will be very different to what it is up here. I don't think there's going to be much at all. You can see that there's almost nothing because it's falling straight down. Very gentle sort of breeze down to the south, but not much at all, so we need to make sure we watch where we put our feet, because if we rustle the grass too much, they could end up picking up on us. But this herd is moving closer and closer, but just behind all the trees, and this is perfect. But it is getting dark, so I think we'll move on from the elephants and start heading a bit closer to home. It doesn't sound like Steve has had any luck with the Duke of Juma.
No, I haven't, but that's okay. There's a good chance that he moved. We went back towards the watering hole to see if we could find him coming down. There was some very relaxed impala there. The chances of him coming to that watering hole may be a little bit slim, and I was maybe hoping for it, but he is going to cover his territory now, I suppose. He was waiting there the whole of last night, so if we come back there again, maybe a little bit too much to ask for, but maybe he's gone into the north, into Bilvershoek, go and check those little watering holes. Who knows? Who knows what the Duke is up to? It's good to see him around though, to have him around. Okay, very good. Well, it seems that James has found the storks that we saw flying high in the sky.
Yes, high in the sky they were flying, but they're not anymore. They're sitting on the tree looking at the moon. I tried to sort of do a bit of a Dr. Seuss rhyme there, but failed dismally. Mind not quick enough. A bit slow, sorry about that. Kirsten says it was very poor and I shouldn't try and do it again. Thank you, Kirsten. I won't. Your encouragement is always much appreciated. That is a very lovely picture that Sebastian Rombai has created for you. What was that? What's she waffling about now? Gosh, it's an endless waffle one gets. Oh, I believe you can hear me fiddling with my camera. I'm sorry about that, everybody. I had to change lenses for an illegal photograph of this gorgeous scene. Ooh, it is very pretty. It's too pretty not to take an illegal picture of. I'm so naughty, aren't I, Sebastian? Mm-hmm. So evil.
Yes, you're honest.
I'm honest about my evil. Benny... Benny, I'm sorry about that. You say you hate marabou stalks. Would you like to elaborate as to why you hate marabou stalks, Benny? I don't think they're certainly the world's ugliest bird, but I don't think that's necessarily any reason we should hate them. I'm sorry to be showing you something that you hate, Benny. It's very distressing that we have been so unkind as to show you something you hate. Now, of course, the marabou stork has white legs. And the white legs are white because they spend quite a lot of time defecating on themselves. And that's to stay cool, and I think that's why their legs are white. Willow Wanderer, you say it's the first time you've ever had an attractive sighting of a marabou stork. Now, I can't disagree with you there. I think I'm in the same boat. I think this is the first time that I have had an attractive marabou sighting as well. I just find it amazing that those spindly little legs that all birds have, of course, are able to support them, especially when they stand on only one leg like that one is doing, as it prepares to have a bit of a snooze. Romby is being particularly artistic today. Benny, you have replied and said that you hate them because they're just ugly, or that they are just ugly. Well, yes, they are. They are fairly ugly creatures, I cannot deny it. I'd love to stand up for them and say that in some way they were attractive, but that would just be a patent untruth, as I'm sure all of you will agree, especially Benny. Harry, you say you hate the moon. Gosh, there's a lot of hate coming over the airwaves at the moment. I'm feeling a lack of positivity. We might have to find a positive squirrel. There you are, Larry. That's especially for you, from Sebastian, who thinks that the moon is rather magnificent and not necessarily worth hating. Larry, what did the moon ever do to you? That you've decided you hate it? Larry, you say you dislike the moon. I'm glad you're not hating it anymore, because it just hangs out all the time. Well, yes, it does, rather. It can't really help that. It's rather attracted by us, and there's nothing it can do about that. Poor moon. The two most hated things I've ever come across. Well, there you are, Ariel. Thank you. Somebody needed to say it. You say that the marabou storks have great personalities. Yes, they do. They probably have very nice handwriting and elbows as well. To each other, of course, they are magnificent. I'm sure that whoever the male is there finds the female extremely dishy. And this is their date. You see, they're having a date. I'm not sure what they're eating for their date. Perhaps this is the post-date moon watch. I'm going to guess that that's her on the right-hand side, being coy. Him on the left now feeling a bit shy about what he's just said, just propositioned her with. She now worried that she may have been slightly too coy because he's turned his back. Ah, the trials of love that must take place before, well, one doesn't, before, you know, the awkwardness goes away. Now he's saying something else. I mean, that's a face only a mother could love, really. Not necessarily a face anyone should hate, but certainly... And many of you slightly disconcerted by somebody should have expressed hate for a marabou and now sending your love, just in case the marabou was insulted by it. And look at that, the nose goes all the way through. Isn't that interesting? Sear hole goes all the way through the top of the beak. You can see the sky behind it. Anyway, yes, they're doing their best to look good. Seb's not helping them at the moment, though. The close-up of their faces is not going to endear anyone to them, or endear them to anyone. Yes, their legs are rather more shapely. Oh, here we go. We might get an exciting bowel movement. Yeah? He's trying to decide if he knows the female well enough for him to do that in front of her. He's decided against it now. He's going to hold it in. She's had too much to drink, so she's struggling to turn round so that she can face him. He's had a little bit too much mampoer, which is a South African moonshine, basically. Yeah, no, she definitely had too much. Jojo, I've no doubt they look at us and think, look at those deeply ugly things. And look at me and say, got no hair on his head. They'll probably find that quite attractive because they look the same. No feathers on their skin. No, this date is not going well for either of them. I don't feel like they're communicating sufficiently. That's a youngster. I think maybe it's her first date. And I think the male is perhaps very unskilled. She's also definitely had way too much to drink, which you must never do on a first date. Just perhaps sufficient to loosen you up a bit. One drink, that's enough. She's had 5 or 6. Oh well. One hopes that their evening improves. Well, yes, Ravinda, it is. You say the hair on its head is like an old man's bald head. It is. I'm very pleased that my bald head does not have hair like that on it. If I was to let it grow for a couple of weeks, though, it probably would look like that. Kirsten, you shut up. You shut your mouth. My head does not look like that. In fact, I'll prove it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I don't have little spiky bits. There we are. I have got a grey bit there, though, because I'm very old. Oh. Thank you. Very nice. Here, if you're missing Brent Leo Smith, here comes his brother. Hello, Dylan. We're going to vicariously enjoy your brother through you. How are you? Good. Nice to see you. Thank you. Have you found anything that I might like to see? I see you're looking at my marabou stalks.
Not much happening that way.
Okay. All right. Enjoy. All right. See you later. Ah. He's going to look for gin and tonic. I hope the marabou stalk didn't hear that. She's definitely been on the sauce too much. Of course, I don't actually know that whether one is male or female. Oh, I believe that the marabou storks are not the only creatures on their first date this evening.
What? On our first date? James, I don't know, the sun has obviously gotten to you. Anyways, right, so there's been many stories about the buffalo thorn picking contest. Obviously, when I tried to compete with Steve, I wasn't given the correct information on how to do it. You see Steve's doing warm-ups. Maybe I'll just copy him because he seems to be quite good at it. So what we've decided to do, we're going to do a re-challenge, and we're going to try and pick as many leaves as we can. We are then going to store, hang on, wait, we're going to store the leaves in our mouths, and Senzel's going to time us. I think we're a bit late though, so we'll do it in the next minute. So that's going to be the rules are you can pick as many leaves as you can use both hands, but you have to keep the leaves in your mouth. You don't have to chew them, you don't have to swallow them, because then we will regurgitate the leaves and then we will count them. How much time have we got, Senzel? 45 seconds to go before we...
You can also do it on the 30-second mark, yeah?
Okay, yeah, 26, 27, 28, 29, go!
Go on. Oh, I'm going to give myself a lip piercing. I'm not chewing. I'm storing the leaves in my mouth.
30 seconds left.
40 seconds. Let's go. I can't cookie in there. Sorry.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
No. That's really gross. That is really gross. Okay. This is our regurgitated leaves. Don't come too close because you're going to see all of our saliva. Let me just do that. That's really... Oh, I lost one. Please don't judge. This one came out of my mouth. Oh, we're going to do them. Okay, now we count. 1, 2, because it's a baby leaf. 3, 10. Oh, that's so gross. 11, 12, 13. I don't normally play with my saliva like this. 15, 16, 17. Ew, that is so disgusting. This is probably one of the grossest things I think I've ever done, is basically my hand is full of my own gob. That is revolting. I promise you I'm a lot more ladylike than this. Steve, have you ever played with your own saliva like this before?
36.
36. I have to count mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Steve, you're the winner. Do you want a high five my saliva hand? No, I'm just joking. I'd never do that to you. Well done, Steve Volvo, ultimate champion.
Oh, let's do the dance, eh?
I don't know what the dance is. Well done, Steve
Well done.
Volvo.
I did stick
That
the
is-
entire branch in my mouth at one stage.
Did you?
Well, it just came off, eh?
And you just popped it all in. That was very clever. I did get it. I'm just now trying to clean my hands with dirt, as you can see, because my hands were disgusting.
James Henry, next time it's you.
Zephyr, you said this is more gross than dung spitting. Nah. Well, the saliva part, yeah, but my mouth is pretty clean. I did brush my teeth before I did the safari, and this is the only thing I put in my mouth since the safari. So, very nice. Well done.
The gag reflex, so it was
Yeah,
tricky.
it was very tricky. At one point, I thought I was going to choke. So, children, please do not try something like that at home unless you are supervised. This is a disclaimer, because it can actually be quite dangerous, even though it's a simple thing like just eating leaves. At one point, you know, my mouth is not supposed to keep that many leaves in it. That's impressive. I didn't even get 30.
That was the problem, was I was eating them and I nearly choked. I was like,
Oh, no.
my hands got caught. The way it works.
Kathy says we're sharing spit on the first date because James said for some bizarre reason that we're on a first date.
Well, we just shared dinner.
Yeah. It was really nice. A great big bowl of buffalo thorn. Oh, great. How
Thank you
awesome
very
is
much.
that?
Now,
Yeah.
you guys, ship on home.
Yeah, we
See you
will have to go walking, and it's a little bit dark. We actually might have to steal a lift home
Well, so Steve's giving her a lift home as well. Well, I suppose at the end of a first date, that's probably a good thing to do. I'm not sure that I would have chosen Ziziphus mucronata as a wooing device from either side. I don't know who was wooing who there, but obviously it worked for them, and he's taking her home. That's fantastic. I'm going to be in a great deal of trouble if I continue along this line of talking, so I think I won't. I think I'll stop. I don't want to go this way. Hang on. Let me go back. I'm sorry you crashed cut away from them. I'm not sure what happened there. It was nothing untoward. Let's go towards Twin Dams. We were asked earlier what the lowest point of Djuma was the other day, and this is it here. Kia, you say who came up with the name Gremlins for the troubles that we have with our signal, etc. I don't know who it was. I'm pretty sure it was you guys. I'm pretty sure it was the viewers, or a viewer, that came up with it. It's really very effective, and it's stuck. I'm not actually sure, though. I don't know who it was initially. Oof, it's getting a little chillsome here. I didn't bring sufficient clothing out with me. I left my jersey behind. Sebastian is now putting on a bright blue blanket that I suspect he borrowed from his daughter. Am I right? He did. He borrowed it from his daughter. She left it. Oh, she left it here. She forgot it, he says. She's only 5. You took it out of her bag. It's hilarious. Okay, right, let's turn some lights on. Get the spotlight out. Start wafting it about. There we are. I think that the spotlight has seen better days myself. I have seen brighter birthday candles than this spotlight. Anyway, it will hopefully illuminate the eyes of a leopard fairly soon. Yee, it's cold down on the lowest point of Djuma. So I think our plan from here will be to go back into that area where Thandi and Kalamba were, and we'll see what we can find around there. Kirsten, are you still there? Or have you, oh, there you are. Yes. Yes, well, I wonder, I don't know where my leggy blankie's gone, actually. I've got another blankie. It's actually known as an ass blankie, this one, because it's a blankie that one would normally sit upon, but I've repurposed it into a leggy blankie. There we are. Am I allowed to say the word ass live? I don't think I am. Anyway, I did. Sorry. No, Kirsten, that's even worse, I think. Kirsten says I should say arse, but I think arse... I know arse is somehow stronger. Buttocks. A buttock blanket. A booty blanket. Bun blanket. Oh, wonderful. We've got an update. They found signal, and, well, let's go across to Steve, who's giving his date a lift home.
Indeed. Well, there they are. Safely home. Safely home, the bushwalk team. Now we can all watch your saber here. That's the deadly instrument right there. The bushwalk team with the guide on the head. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you at dinner time. Get the fire going. We want it nice and warm when we get back. Okay? Thank you very much. Cheers, guys. Well, there they go. Bushwalk team safely home. Fergus. And the Hardy-Dars agreeing with us. I don't know if you heard that on the top there. my Hardy-Dar impression. Thank you, Kirst. Kirst said I got 10 out of 10 for my Hardy-Dar impression. Thank you very much. You know, I was always told they shout like that because they're afraid of heights. Whenever they're in the sky, they shout. But what they're actually doing it for is to keep their fellows together. So if they all follow each other, well, at least that they're all together, you know? I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm over here. It's very annoying. They're all over Johannesburg. It's because there's so many lawns in Joburg, and everybody waters the lawn. So there's multitudes of earthworms and insects in the garden, on the ground, and the Hardy-Dar ibis, they absolutely love them. Also commonly known as the Sandton fish eagle. Sandton is quite a popular suburb in Johannesburg, and so the Hardy-Dar makes the characteristic Joburg call, like the African wilderness down here. The characteristic call of the African wilderness is the African fish eagle. The Hardy-Dar ibis is the Sandton fish eagle. If that makes any sense to any of you. Some of you might understand that. If you don't worry, you didn't miss too much. Okay, so it's getting time for us to get out our spotlight. Yes, it is indeed. Just because you asked, we will turn over and give you another look. El Moor. How beautiful is the sky. The sounds of the evening start to come across us. Shouting of a fork-tailed drongo. A whistle of the pearl-spotted owlet. Okay, so we're sorry about the high-pitched feedback from the vehicle. We are a moving instrument of technology, and that moving instrument requires a fan to cool down the heat generated by this amazing vehicle. I do apologize for any unnatural sounds you might be hearing. It is serenity, they say. Really? Tammy Zumi, you can hear it soaring? Well, we're just above that. Let's go have a look. We didn't hear that. But the Zumis are never wrong. Was it a beep bop or what? Was it a beep bop? What? Because that could mean Tingana or Hukumuri. So the dam is just down here. Let's go have a look, shall we? We didn't hear that, but we do know the dam cam has got an amazing ability to pick up sound from a distance. And we did come to drop Taylor off again. We went past Taylor watering hole, so we had a thought to maybe Tingana will materialize again, and maybe it's the third time around. You know what they say, third luck or third time lucky? Well, we could be. We just got to head down the hill here. It's just below us. Watering hole's just here. Just going to go down in stealth mode. The impala that we hear earlier have vanished. Scan around, see if we can see anything. Generally, when a leopard soars, they are moving. They don't often stand still and call. Hopefully he calls again. It's really up to you, Kirst. We have a little look down here first. Maybe he's in the drainage itself or in the bottom of the actual dam itself. We'll get back onto the wall and have a bit more of a look. It's nice and fresh. This is a popular route down this way, is called Twin Dams Road. Quite often, and that's where we just came from. So I doubt it was him walking down that way. Hold on, folks. Get up onto the top here, and then we'll have a switch off again. Okay, well, while we have a little search, let's go and see exactly where James is after his marabou stalks.
I'm just driving past where we saw Tlalamba last, hoping that we might come across a leopard. I wonder who is sawing at the dam. That's quite interesting. I don't imagine it's Thandi, because I don't think she'd want to attract the attentions of any other leopards, especially if Hogomori is around the place. Maybe it's Tingana, come back from where he was today. I do hope Steve manages to find whoever it is. That will be good. Telly, that's interesting. No, I don't think so. I don't know of any plant species that make a sound of their own volition. Except, well, that's not really of their own volition. Of course, the tambuchi tree has a little moth larva living in the seed. And so the seed makes a popping sound. It does pop. But it wouldn't pop if it wasn't for the fact that the larva was living in it, so it's not really of its own volition. I suppose there might be a few other seed pods that pop with an audible noise. The whistling thorn has got thorns that if you orientate them to the wind in a certain way, they will make a whistling sound. That's not entirely of its own volition. So, no, I don't. I mean, obviously they creak and groan, some trees, when they're blown by the wind. But I don't know of any tree that actually makes a noise, that sings. There was a story called The Singing Tree once, I think, that a carver carved into a singing statue, I seem to remember. It was quite a famous story. Must have been very young when I had it read to me. Definitely had it read to me. It was by that stage I really didn't read very much. Singing tree. I've never met a singing tree. No, I don't think we're going to have much luck in this area of Thandi and Tlalamba. Minamu owlet is simply a name used to describe a small owl. So the smaller owls, like the white-faced Scops owlet and the Scops owlet and the barred owlet and the pearl-spotted owlet, none of them make the same noise as each other, so they all make different noises. And then the owls, which are just bigger, make different noises themselves. So I don't think that the designation owlet is necessarily one that is, you know, it's got nothing to do with their voices, and I actually don't think that it has a biological validity other than this sort of size, I think. Although barred owls and pearl-spotted owls are obviously closer related to each other than they are to giant eagle owls, for example. Yeah, there's not much going on in this particular area. You might be lucky. I'm going to go down towards the dam area as well and give Steve a hand. We're not too far from there, probably about 5 minutes or so. Because I ain't got nothing to look for on me own. All right, let's go back across to Steve, see if he's had any luck.
Well, no, not yet. Not yet. We are checking all the areas around the watering hole to see if he might have been walking, because that's generally what he'll do. If he calls, he's walking. Scent marking. The question comes now: do we go down to Gallagher watering hole, or do we go that way? This is where the question comes in. This way or that way? Someone is coming that way, so they will be able to see. Maybe that is James. I'll keep going along this way. I see a car coming down there. Last minute leopard, we hope. We hope we can find you one. Him, indeed, the Duke. Hey, folks, well, I think everyone's on the edge of their seat in anticipation for us finding a spotted friend. I hope those watching the dam cam are keeping a very good ear out, no doubt, and their eyes peeled for any leopard movement. We're checking the roads as best we can. If he's off the road in the block, well, it'd be impossible to see at the moment. I think this might be a bit far for if he was calling. He might have walked in, gone along the drainage line between Gallagher and Boetela watering holes. A very good possibility. And what is the answer to that question, Kerr? We're all good. Okay, well, we need to find you an animal. And then Ferg will... Okay, well, let's stop here, shall we? Is that a good spot? Oh, here we go. Here's a little animal. There's an animal. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? We are about to... We're going to infrared first. Sorry about that. And now we're going to go into, whenever everybody is ready, we're going to go into the flare. See if we can spot whatever animal it was that just moved there. Let's have a look and see. Can we see it? Ooh. I saw a little dacre in there. I think he moved. He knew he was about to be spotted. See if we can find him. Where did he go? I think he might have run off. He definitely moved. What is that there? Looks like a stump. Might as well be a stump. Looks like a stump. Probably a stump. Okay, well, let's go a little bit further forward, shall we? See if we can see something else. You can see the lovely colors of the vegetation and the ground. The grass is a lot cooler, given off a lot of its heat already. It's a little bit chilly in the evening. Okay, so back on the IR with us. And I'm probably going to turn around soon and head back towards the watering hole. But the key there was I did spend those moments listening as well while we're getting the flow up and running to see if we could hear any calling. There was nothing. I didn't even hear it the first time. You didn't either, hey Ferg? Okay, well, James is in fact back by the dam, so let's go over to him.
I am back, coming over the dam wall, seeing if I can spot any leopards. Anybody have any idea from the dam cam where you thought you heard the leopard calling? Somewhere? I know it's very difficult from a microphone to tell. The spotlight is rather hopeless at looking anything further than 2 feet in front of us, so you'd have to remedy that. That's not a leopard, it's a stump. So if you do have any bright ideas as to where you thought it was, it would be marvellous to hear. Ooh. We might just head back up onto quarantine clearings, which are not far from here. See if whatever it made the sawing noise hasn't gone up there to hunt. Except hunting and sawing are both bad ideas. You know, you shouldn't do one with the other. Things tend to hear you coming. Let's stop and have a little listen and see if we don't get it again. Let me position ourselves so we can at least look at the moon. Yeah?
Yeah, that's good, thank you.
Alright, let's listen for 30 seconds. Pearl spotted owl calling. No leopard just yet. Otherwise, very, very quiet indeed. Yeah, Saravinda, you're absolutely correct. You say the silence of the wilderness. It is very silent here in the wilderness. Absolutely. Beautiful. I'm afraid we have not managed to hear anything further. So perhaps we should head up onto the clearings and see if we don't get lucky there. I do miss our old pal Hosanna. His cousin Tamba. Cousin? His sister's son, yes, his cousin. But don't worry, everybody, soon we will have young male leopards here again one day. F-P-A-T-H. Fat. Faff. S for sugar. S-P-A-T-H. Spath. Spath. Okay, got it. S-P-A-T-H. Spath, not fath. S-P-A-T-H. Any animal that I have not seen on Juma that I would like to see. Mammal-wise, I've never seen a caracal. I've never seen an African wildcat. Both of which do occur here. Brent has seen a marmalade cat once, but that wasn't wild. That had escaped from a camp. He went wild, that's correct, Kirsten. Thank you very much. I'm trying to think of a mammal that I haven't made. Oh, an aardvark that is alive would be very nice. I've seen a dead aardvark, but I've never seen a living one here. Pangolin, obviously. Never seen a pangolin here before. So that's 4. Can't believe that. That's really amazing, actually, that I've been here 3 years and there's still 4 mammals. Well, I mean, there are lots of bats that I haven't seen, I'm sure, but 4 obvious mammals that I haven't seen. Pangolin, aardvark, and caracal and African wildcat. Caracal will not be common in this area, but they'll be around. That African wildcat we should see. Civet, we see their tracks all the time, and I think I've only seen 1 here. You turn the lights off as we go up past these impalas. Good luck tonight, chaps. All the best. Stay warm. Stay safe. Yes, the reason I thought of the African wildcat, Monique, was because we were driving past where Jamie saw it. It was just not far from where we are now. You're absolutely correct. Jamie had an African wildcat here once. I think that's the only one that's been seen on SafariLive. Don't panic, Impala, we're just coming past. And Taylor saw a caracal. All the ladies showing us up. And Brent saw a pangolin. Where did Brent see a pangolin? On Cheetah Play, that's right, he did. Strictly speaking, it was in the Kruger, I seem to remember, but yes, he did have a pangolin, I remember that. Is that a jackal or children screaming?
I think it's Steve screaming. Is that Steve?
No, I don't think so. Let's just stop here. Listen, everybody. That's small Wallingtons, yes. Small Wallingtons making of, shall we say, an enthusiastic commentary as to what's going on in the wilderness. No, I don't think we'll put them on camera. Who knows what they'll do. So we've got children screaming, and we have their mother going, whoosh, whoosh. That's hilarious. Okay, I think I can see Steve's lights in the distance. Let's go and see where he is.
Yes, well, we're going down Gallagher shortcut, and we have got a hornbill in the tree that we're going to try and get on the thermal imaging once we just sort out a few niggles in the back here. Obviously, we're not disturbing him there because we don't have any lights on him. And if we look at him shortly with the thermal image, it might show some interesting sort of warmth or coolness on him or her. I can't really tell. You just let me know, Ferg, when you want to do some thermal. Okay. Kirst, whenever you're ready. Okay, you're ready? So whenever you're ready, Kirst, we can go across to the thermal imaging, please. On the flare. And there he is. He's very well insulated. He's all sort of fluffed up there with the feathers. You can just see where the heat is giving off around the eye and a little bit on the rump area. There's just sort of on the right of the screen, you see that very, very bright red spot. That is the eye socket. And other than that, the rest of the body is not giving off any heat. And you're right in the middle now. Quite interesting how well insulated the bird is. And that is what the feathers of birds are all about. That's why some people even wear down feathers in their jackets, because of the insulating properties. Yeah, so the outside feathers obviously are protecting the inside, and so the feathers themselves on the outside are not giving off any real signature, and just the radiated signature that might have been picked up on the tree around it as well. So we need to get this. Even his beak is very blue. So he's almost like sort of cut off blood supply to the beak. Very hard to say. But he needs something to cover his eye so that he can maintain a little bit of body temperature. but they're well adapted. That's a very good example of how. There you go. He's at the bottom of the screen now. Nicely tucked up there. His feet are pulled right into his body. Are they? Not really. Well, we've had a very interesting afternoon. Very interesting afternoon discussing lots of ecology and grasses, and James, Henry and Taylor out on foot and James on drive. We've really enjoyed ourselves. Trying out new technology in the way of the fleur is very, very interesting, with lots more to come in that regard. And it has been a wonderful day out in the African savannas. It is getting a little bit colder, so we're going to head on home for some dinner. But thank you for joining us. We'll see you again bright and early tomorrow morning for another safari. Please tune in then, and we'll see you then. Have a good night.